evening and welcome to the June 20th, 2019 meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners, our regular meeting and public hearings. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 5:03 p.m. And I would like to ask Commissioner Mills to lead us in the invocation and prayer, or excuse me, invocation and pledge. Please stand as you are able.
Thank you. Let us pray. Thank you, dear Lord, for today. Thank you, God, for your many blessings. Help us, Lord God, to be in your will, Lord. Help us to find the path that you would have us to go down. Help us, God, to seek your will, to find the way that you would like for us to go. Help us, God, to build unity in our county. Help us, God, to always be mindful of the things that are pleasing unto you. Be with our public safety. Be with those that serve you on foreign lands. Be with those that are facing difficult decisions, God. Help them, God, to turn to you and to seek guidance from you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody's burning up.
It's really hot in here. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on to the adoption of the agenda. I'd like to make an announcement that Commissioner Brown is not with us this evening, so we will be operating with 4 members present. He has left some items of business for me to handle for him, so I'll be making some changes for the District 2 Commissioner on the agenda, as well as relaying his desires later in the meeting. So with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone old business number 2 to July the 18th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please, or everyone, please vote. And that motion carries 4-0.
That was July 19th.
18.
18th.
Mm-hmm. And I'd also like to remove item 5R from the consent agenda. And we will be withdrawing that item.
Madam Chair, that takes a motion and second, just
Okay.
in that, well, and if I can give you a point of order, there's 2 ways we can do that.
I was
One,
going to remove it from consent and then put it on the agenda and then
Or
remove it, withdraw it, or
if the board wants to withdraw it by way of a full motion and vote right now with a majority, that'd be fine as well.
that'd be perfectly fine then. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And item number 5R from the consent agenda has been withdrawn. District 3. Do you have any changes, Todd? You do not.
If I do, Madam Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Cooper, do you have any changes for District 1?
I do not, Madam Chair.
And Commissioner Mills, I believe you have at least one.
I've got 2.
2.
Under public hearing number 8, that will be, let me make sure I've got it right. That will be just the public hearing only. Postpone a decision to July the 11th.
Okay. So we will be hearing that.
Hearing the public hearing,
Okay. That could be just an announcement, correct? All right.
and there'll be no vote.
Right.
That's correct.
And
All right.
what other
And then,
comments?
wait, let me make sure that wasn't public hearing 9.
No, public hearing 8 was the sketch plat for LS storage.
All right. Ethan? That is correct. Okay. And public hearing 9 will be postponed to July the 11th. Is that correct?
Is that just for the decision or is that for the hearing? Would you like to postpone the whole hearing?
Hold on. July 18th. No, that's Commissioner Brown. Never mind.
Public hearing number 9 is District 4. That's the amendment of zoning conditions on Setting Down Road.
Leave that one alone.
Okay.
That one will be fine.
Okay.
I thought there was 2. Ethan, where's your other one? I thought you had two. That was the only one tonight?
We asked to postpone something in Commission District 5.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll get
All
to
right.
that one.
that's the only, that was it.
I'll get to that one when I do my own. If you're through, I will
That's
do
it.
mine then. In District 5, I'd like to postpone old business number 1 to July the 11th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, please vote. And that item will be moved out to July the 11th. I'd also like to announce, as we did earlier, that we will be discussing old business number 3 this evening, but I do not intend to make a decision on that. I intend to allow that to catch up with the zoning condition amendment, so that's just an announcement. Are there any changes from the county manager?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Deputy County Manager Tim Merritt?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no changes.
Thank you. Counselor?
Madam Chair, I do.
Okay.
I've got to locate it, forgive me. And Madam Chair, just confirm this for me. Have we postponed old business item 1?
Yes, we have.
Thank you. All right, so the only other one I have would be to ask for the board's indulgence on a procedural item, and I want to turn the board's attention to administrative hearing number 1, which is a massage and spa hearing. The parties is represented by council. Council has a hard stop commitment at 8. And I would respectfully ask the board that if we are still moving at 7, that we could take that one after that item following 7 o'clock. In other words, bump it up so we hear it right at 7 or thereabouts.
You know, it might not be a bad idea for us to do it right away and let everybody see this process, because we always hold them to the end and nobody even gets to see the process.
I'm sure that council would be perfectly comfortable with that as well. I think the point is just to allow this individual to get out of here if they can.
Madam Chair, would you consider putting it
I
as
would certainly
first?
consider that. Would you like to offer that as a motion?
I would like to put that as a motion for administrative hearing number 1 to be heard just prior to public hearing number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Okay, and so that is moved. I believe Commissioner Cooper did have another.
Yes, I do.
Addition.
On new business number 2, I would move that we postpone that to the next work session if we have availability on that agenda.
We should.
I'm sorry, ma'am, did you say new business number 2?
Number 2, yes.
Do you want to move that out to next week, or do you want to move it into July?
I think we need to move it into July.
Okay. So our first work session in
On the
July.
Well, I'm not going to be here on the 9th. Could we do it? Would y'all mind if we did the second work session in July?
At the 23rd?
Okay,
Okay,
Is that okay?
that's good. Gives us plenty of time.
okay. So we have a motion then. Do we have a second to postpone that item to
Second.
July 23rd? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. I think we have 35 items on the agenda already for work session next week, so, yeah.
We don't need 36.
Yeah, I think that one may take some discussion as well. Are there any other changes from staff? There are not. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second, please vote. And that motion carries with a vote of 4-0. Announcements and reports. We actually have a couple of proclamations, and I can see our guys are here, and they're both for you, so come on forward, please. Thank you. So with us tonight, we have the Sons of the American Revolution. Would you like to read one of them and I'll read the other? So give everybody a little break on my voice tonight. All right. We have a proclamation by the Board of Commissioners of Forsyth County, Georgia. Whereas America's 13 colonies, along with many other grievances, were forced to pay taxes to England's King George III despite having no representation in the British Parliament. And whereas dissatisfaction grew and British troops were sent to quell the early movement towards rebellion as repeated attempts by the colonists to resolve the crisis without military conflict proved fruitless. And whereas on June 11, 1776, the colony's Second Continental Congress met in Philadelphia and formed a committee whose express purpose was drafting a document that would formally sever their ties with Great Britain. The committee included Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Roger Sherman, and Robert R. Livingston. And whereas on July 2nd, 1776, the Second Continental Congress voted to approve the Declaration of Independence and officially adopted the final version on July 4th, 1776. And from the words of the Declaration of Independence, whereas we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem likely to affect their safety and happiness. Now therefore, the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners does now hereby proclaim July 4th, 2019 as Independence Day, and urge all citizens to recognize our founding fathers who laid the foundations of this great nation, the United States of America. I'm going to allow you.
Mine?
That's right.
Whereas the Continental Congress of the United States on June 14, 1777, adopted the first official flag of the United States. And whereas the Congress of the United States on August 3, 1949, officially designated June 14 of each year as National Flag Day. And whereas the Congress of the United States on June 20, 1965, adopted a joint resolution approved by the President to recognize a pause for the Pledge of Allegiance as part of National Flag Day ceremonies and urge all Americans to participate. And whereas Forsyth County has always been proud of our national flag and what it symbolizes, knowing that it stands for the best that humankind has ever sought and achieved in the history of this world. Now, therefore, the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim June 14, 2019 as National Flag Day, and invite all of you citizens to join in the common declaration of faith represented in the words of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Go ahead and present this to them.
You guys all squeeze in just a little bit.
Let everybody know, Saturday morning at 8 a.m. at Ingram Funeral Home, we're having a flag retirement ceremony. When you have a flag, an American flag that is past its life, it's frayed, it's worn, it's faded, the proper disposal procedures for that is to retire that flag, and then it will be burned in an incinerator. So we have a formal ceremony where we've collected flags. There's a flag depository at the Home Depot in Cumming, and some other places that we have gathered.
At this time, Russell is going to read the rules of the meeting and will announce the public comments speakers.
All right, thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the board. We'd like to take a moment to review the meeting procedures for this evening. First, please silence all cell phones and electronic devices. Those who wish to speak during public comments must complete a public comment form which is available just outside of this room. Information regarding specific requirements to address the board is listed at the podium. Please state that information prior to speaking. All comments shall be directed to the entire board and not to one particular commissioner. There are 2 public comment opportunities during the meeting for speakers to make a verbal presentation to the board. One is now and one will be prior to old business. The number of speakers is limited to 10 now and 10 during the second portion. Speakers are selected on a first-come basis and will be heard in the order in which they signed up, with the exception that Forsyth County residents will be heard first, with non-county residents to follow until the allotted time has expired. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. There are no speakers signed up for this first public comment section, but if anyone wishes to address the board during this public comment portion of tonight's meeting, please come forward at this time. I'm seeing none, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Russell. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting and public hearings of July 6th, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. That motion carries with a vote of 4-0. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of the special called meeting of June 7th, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes and work session of the minutes of the work session and executive session of of June the 11th, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. That carries 4-0. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please vote. And that also carries with a vote of 4-0. All right, moving on to our public hearings.
Madam Chair, were we going to take the one admin hearing
Oh, you are
beforehand?
correct. We did insert that right there. Let's go with our administrative hearing.
This is an administrative hearing for HUI Healthcare LLC, doing business as Golden Massage. This is located in Commission District Number 2. This is in reference to violations of massage and spa ordinance for HUI Healthcare LLC, doing business as Golden Massage, located at 1465 Peachtree Parkway, Suite B4. Name licensee is Yuki Dang. In this case, the owner was issued a citation for violations under Section 22-230D for no licensed massage therapist at business, no prior citations in the past 24 months.
Thank you. Is there a motion to open the administrative
So
hearing?
moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that hearing is now open with a vote of 4-0. So you're obviously here to speak in favor of your client, and maybe your client would like to speak as well. Or?
Thank you and good evening. My name is Justin Spiesman. I represent Ms. Dang. First of all, I appreciate you moving me to the front of the line, even though that wasn't what I asked for. I do appreciate it. We have received a citation that was based off of the particular spa not having an individual that could give massages at that time. This is Ms. Dang. She's the owner of the massage. She also employs a full-time manager there that has a massage license, and that individual is actually in raising her hand back there just to let the board identify her. In addition to that, just to demonstrate to the board that the spa tries to be in compliance with all ordinances to ensure these types of situations do not occur, I have looks like about the past quarter of logs where there's been consistent sign-ins every single individual. Not what they were cited for, but just shows that they're trying to abide by the ordinances. She has owned the parlor for 6 months. There's been no previous tickets or citations of any kind. In fact, when she received the citation, she went and took responsibility, paid the fine, and so she's admitting that she did violate. But this particular day was unique in the sense that she had an issue with her child at school, and her other employee that is generally there full-time was sick. So she was out ill, and Ms. Dang was supposed to be effectively the on-duty massage/masseuse on that day. But because of an issue with her child at school, which she'll speak to the board about, she was not there for a brief amount of time. At that point in time, a customer came in and requested a massage. Rather than actually giving the massage, the individual that was there What they did is they put the individual that was requesting a massage in the massage room and called Ms. Dang to come to the spa because they had a potential client. Ms. Dang informed them not to give a massage, but that she would be there shortly, and no massage was given. At that point in time, that is when she received the citation. And so it was a situation where there was no intent to provide any services without having a valid license. It was just kind of a perfect storm, unfortunately, where Ms. Dang wasn't there for a small period of time. And I'll let her address the board to kind of explain what occurred during that morning. So go ahead, Ms. Dang.
Hey, good evening. So in that day, my kids, she's like 8 years old. She have like a school meeting. So, I'm a single mom, so it's a little hard for me, So I went to the school and I let my friend just open the store for me. And because I have appointment in that time, I just want to tell the customer, like, wait for me. I'm just 5 minutes away. The school is just 5 minutes away. So I tell her like not doing the customer because I understand the rules of the county.
Okay, so that was what occurred on that morning. I sat down with her. We did review the county ordinances and regulations to ensure that she had a complete understanding and that she knows that even having an individual or having the store open without anyone to provide a massage is in fact a violation. So we went through each and every one to ensure that she is compliant moving forward, to ensure that she's received the proper education so that this doesn't happen again. Because of the isolated incident, and while all of these violations are serious because of the nature of this one compared to some of the others that you all might see, it feels like a warning in this particular case would be a fair and appropriate remedy. She's a single mother. This is how she provides with her family, and certainly she's doing everything that she can to ensure that moving forward she does much better.
Do you have anyone else who's here to speak on your behalf?
Would you like to come up? Come on up, come on up, come on up.
Come on forward. And when you come forward, please give us your name. My name? When you get up to the front, yeah.
Wait till you get here.
You don't have to run.
Yeah,
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Chun Ping Sen, Chunping. My last name is Sun.
Okay. And were you there that day, or do you want to give us your account? We're just in a public hearing right now, so you're
Yeah,
you
that
can
day
give
I
your
have
piece.
some schedule go outside with some things, so that day I'm not on the store. I get off on the half days. I will come later, but that day, that time I'm not on the store. So that's why that girl is my girlfriend. I asked her, but she need to go to school. I asked her, just look a little bit. If you have a customer coming, tell them, come later, please. Mm-hmm. And you just, some people call phone, tell them, come later, please. Just she do this for us. So I'm sorry, so they get big trouble, so she's scared. She cannot talk too much. She's younger than me more. So when she come, I just hold her. Don't worry. I hold her a lot. When she want to come, she's scared a lot. So I'm sorry for this happened. So we're scared about this too.
Okay. Is there anyone else you'd like to bring forward, and I'll move on to the rest of the public hearing?
No,
No?
thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Stay close, but I'm going to see if there's anyone who'd like to speak in opposition.
Okay, all right.
Is there anyone who's here to speak in opposition, or if the officer that gave the citation is here, if you could just come forward, and just if there's anything that is different than your recollection of the events, that would be important to us.
Sure. Council synopsis is fairly accurate with the exception of when I conducted the check, Quinlan Zhu actually did have a customer in there. She was providing a massage. She is not licensed. That's why we had her contact the owner. So when the owner showed up, that's when I wrote the citation.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else who's here to speak in opposition or to speak to this at all? Is there a motion to close
You might want to give them an opportunity to rebut or comment to the
we're
officer's
gonna,
comments.
when we ask questions, we can do that. Is there a motion to close the administrative hearing?
Second.
There's a motion, a second, please vote. And the administrative hearing is now closed. If y'all want to come forward, I believe Commissioner Levent may have a question for you.
I just want to hear what your comment is back towards the officer's testimony.
Sure. Bit of a language barrier. That wasn't knowledge that I had. Certainly, as you can tell and as you've heard, the goal in educating Ms. Dang and on that day is to avoid these types of scenarios. No one is more disappointed that she's in this position than Ms. Dang herself. This is how she provides for her family. So I think we're all very clear on what she can and can't do. It appears that because of the situation with her being pulled out of the store, which was totally unexpected, this is what had occurred. Obviously, she has a manager, someone that does have a license that is there when she cannot be there. So there's as many safeguards in place as possible, but it's been a learning experience.
Can you please tell me how long that she has been in business?
It's been 6 months, right? Since
Yeah,
December.
since last December.
December 2018. So although you haven't had citations any in the last 24 months, you've only been open for, what, 6 or 7?
That's right.
Okay.
Do any of the other commissioners have questions or
I do.
comments?
Do you usually have people give massages that are not a licensed therapist?
No, she have the license. She's a full-time employee and a manager too.
But that was why you were given the citation, was because someone was giving a massage that was not a licensed therapist, so.
She's asking if this has occurred outside of this particular instance.
The
think
other
they
girl,
just
she's not an employee. She's just her friend.
You understand my question?
I understand the question. So
Yeah.
the answer is, because we've obviously talked about it, is that she has not shared with me that this has occurred prior to today's date. I'm sorry, prior to the date of the incident. And so, once again, proactively, after she came into my office, I said, look, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so let's talk about what you can do and what you can't do based on this Source City ordinances and code sections that you need to abide by. And there's a lot of them, but I did my best to kind of go through the ones that I think are going to be relevant to our day-to-day operations. So to answer your question, no, not that I'm aware of, and I think your answer would be no as well.
And can you clarify, Mr. Gerard, let's see if I remember this correctly, there's a license that the county issues, but there's also a state licensed individual massage therapist that has to be on the premise whenever the building is open for business, correct?
That's
But they don't actually have to be the one that does the massage, as long as there's somebody licensed in the county and that state licensed person is on the property, am I right?
That's right. The
That is correct.
Yes, the state licensed massage therapist must be on the premise at all times.
But they're not the ones that have to do the massage.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, the state licensed massage therapist has to administer
Yeah.
the massage.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
They
that's right.
it has to be someone that provides the service, and they also have to have one there just to have the doors open.
That's correct.
But to provide the service, it has to be a licensed massage therapist. So it's both if you're providing service. But at a minimum, someone needs to be there.
That's what I'm
on
saying, the
hand,
minimum.
Just for the door, even just to make
Open,
appointments.
and that's what they've got
Correct.
written on
And
because they
that's-
weren't there.
That's what the violation was,
Correct.
exactly.
Right. So my question to you is how are you going to handle situations like that again in the future?
So before, we have like a couple times, I have some issue with my kids' school. That's how I just closed the store. I didn't run the store. You can ask this gentleman. He knows. I always close the store in the morning. She knows. He knows.
The police?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were
he
pointing at a
knows.
customer.
No, the policeman.
Kirk, really?
The police officer.
Okay, yeah, okay. So in the future, if you have to be called off duty and you do not have a licensed massage therapist, it is your intention that you'll put up the closed sign?
Yeah,
and-
just the closed side, not
Okay.
open.
Not open, okay, thank you. Any questions from Commissioner Mills? That was your question? Okay. Well, I had spoken to Commissioner Brown, this is in his district earlier today, and he felt that we were capable of making a decision on this. It seems like in the scheme of things, sometimes we find out that there are backstories behind some of these infractions, and it's my understanding that there's not. This is a fairly straightforward situation. So I'd like to make a motion that we put a warning letter in the file, and that we hope we don't see you again.
Same here.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to put a warning letter in the file. Please vote. And that motion carries with a vote of 3-1. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Everybody be excused?
You may.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All righty, on to our public hearings.
Commissioners, I'd like to make you aware, before we start the public hearings, that the applicants for public hearings number 1, 2, 3, and 4 all include the stipulation in their lease that the rent for the licensed premises may be based in whole or part on the volume of the sales of alcoholic beverages. As you may recall, there are provisions in the alcohol code that prohibit the tethering of rent to the volume of alcohol sales. However, there's a provision that the board may grant an exemption to this prohibition. As you're aware, this was previously discussed with Mr. Gerard at the June 20th meeting. If the applications are approved at this meeting tonight, and the board chooses to exempt the lease prohibition, it would be suggested the exemption is specifically stated in the motion that you're also granting an exemption to section 1.3D of the alcohol code.
Thank you.
So the first public hearing is AL 190822. It's located in Commission District Number 2. This is a request for approval of an alcohol license for CB Theater Experience, LLC, doing business as CMX Halcyon. Name licensee is Kirsten Lee McNeil, for an application to sell malt beverages and wine and distilled spirits for consumption on the premises at their place of business located at 6215 Town Square.
Thank you. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And our public hearing is now open with a vote of 4-0. If there's anyone here to speak in favor, or if the applicant is here, please come forward at this time.
Hello.
Hi there. If you could state your name and your,
So I'm Kirsten McNeil.
okay,
Shane Pierce.
okay. And Kirsten, you are actually the you will be the license holder.
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
And you guys are both here, obviously, in favor of this application. Is there any comments you'd like to make before I look to see if there's anyone else who'd like to speak in favor? Or you want to just reserve that? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who's here to speak in opposition to this? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
The motion, or that, we have a motion and a second. Please vote. And our public hearing is closed with a vote of 4-0. Questions from the commissioners?
This is going to be the new and an amazing theater in Forsyth County, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's what we've been hearing for a long time now. And when will you be open?
Not an official date yet, but we're pushing the end of third quarter, beginning of fourth. So,
Awesome. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it, and I think a lot of others are as well.
yes, sir.
Yes.
Going to be slammed.
Yes, ma'am. We're ready.
And you guys,
exciting.
you guys actually have an operation down in Peachtree Corners as well.
I have an operation in Peachtree and in Brookhaven.
Is it the same model, same business model, same food and alcohol service, all the same?
That's correct,
Same
yes, ma'am.
concept? Have you had any issues with your alcohol permits in that location?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any type of a program that you use as a standard program to train your employees on how to, I imagine in a theater it's kind of dark, and you have to be very careful about making sure that they have valid IDs?
Yes, ma'am. We have Operation 21 for this county is what we're going to utilize for,
Very
both of
good.
us already have that, and then all of our hourly employees will also go through that classes. They'll be permitted from the county. We also have protocol in place as far as our training for in the theater, both in the bar area where it's very well lit. We ID, of course, everyone in the theater as well. We do 30 minutes prior to the movie trailer starting. Lights are up, and everybody's carded as well in there.
Okay, and did I read in your business description that you guys, you're 21 and up only for evening shows?
From 6:01 p.m. and
Okay.
after, we are 21 and up, yes, ma'am. So
Okay.
the 6 o'clock show is the last show that anyone under 21 can go into.
So someone's not going to order a picture and share it with their underage friends at an evening show?
No, ma'am.
Very good. Are there any further questions from the board? I'd like to make a motion that we approve alcohol license application AL 190822 and include in that an exemption to section 1.3D of the alcohol code.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that motion carries with a vote of 4-0.
Congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We look forward to
Thank
seeing
you
all
very
of you.
much.
Number 2.
AL 1900820, located in Commission District Number 2. This is a request for approval of an alcohol license for Thousand Hills Halcyon LLC, doing business as Land of a Thousand Hills Coffee Company. Name licensee is Jonathan Golden, for an application to sell malt beverages, wine, and distilled spirits for consumption on the premises at their place of business, located at 6330 Halcyon Way, Suite 780.
Thank you. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And our public hearing is open with a vote of 4-0. If the applicant is here or anyone who is here to speak in favor of this, please come forward this time.
Hi, my name is Lena Dillon. I'm speaking on behalf of the licensee, Jonathan Golden.
Have any comments, or you just want to stick around for questions?
Just the questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who's here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who is here to speak in opposition? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And we are closed with a vote of 4-0. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
Why is Jonathan not here as the applicant?
Jonathan was called out of town on business. He has a residence in Massachusetts, and I'm his assistant. I wish he told me everything. He doesn't.
So just a reminder, our alcohol code reminds that it states that the licensee has to be a part of the day-to-day business, almost verbatim, word for word.
Yes, and he will be part of the day-to-day business. We're located, our headquarters is located about 30 minutes away from here in Roswell. Jonathan makes a habit of visiting all of our stores on a regular basis. We have 5 stores in the metro Atlanta area, as well as, 4 in Atlanta, 1 in Roswell.
And where's his primary residence?
It is in Roswell. We have a registered agent in the county.
So his primary residence is in Roswell, Georgia?
Is in Roswell, Georgia.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And I guess the same questions that Chairman Simonson is going to ask you, I'm sure she'll ask you all about your training and what kind of programs you have, so please.
Absolutely.
Yes, so Jonathan has gone through the TUR training. We've already talked to them about coming out and having the site-wide training for all of the Halcyon employees that will be hired. Our general manager for all of our Atlanta stores was formerly a bartender, so he's going to be in charge of that, and he's going to redo his certification through that. He's currently not on the floor serving, so he doesn't have one, but he's going to go through that process again when we do the big training.
Okay, and you'll do that prior to having people on the floor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions from Commissioners Cooper or Mills?
I do not.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve alcohol license AL 1900820 for Land of a Thousand Hills Coffee Company with an exemption to Section 1.3D of the Alcohol Code.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And the motion carries 4-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. When do you anticipate being open?
Woo, we hope soon. We're honestly hoping for August. That's our goal.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You.
Number 3?
AL 1900819, this is located again in Commission District Number 2. This is a request for approval of an alcohol license for 1400 McFarland Parkway LLC, doing business as Butcher and Brew. Name licensee is Louis Soon, for an application to sell malt beverages, wine, and distilled spirits for consumption on the premises at their place of business, located at 6690 Town Square, Suite 410. Please note this name licensee is also the name licensee on the next public hearing as well.
Thank you. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. And we are open with a vote of 4-0. If the applicant or anyone else who's here to speak in favor is present, please come forward.
Hello, good evening.
You could state your name and...
My name is Louis Soon.
Okay, and you are going to be the holder of the license?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Right, okay. Any comments you'd like to make before we ask for other comments?
No.
No, okay, well, stick around. Is there anyone else who's here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who's here to speak in opposition? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And we're closed with a vote of 4-0. Any questions from the board? I have a couple. So you are also making application for another license
Correct, ma'am.
later in the agenda here. Do you hold any, or have you held an alcohol license in Forsyth County before?
I have 3 restaurants in Alpharetta right now.
Okay, are they in Forsyth or are they in Fulton?
I think it's Fulton County.
Okay, and you're familiar with our code here in Forsyth County, and that if you hold multiple licenses, that an infraction against one license will count for both. You aware of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted,
We hold the law
you're a
on the
brave
restaurants.
man.
Yes.
Yes.
But you understand what she's saying?
Yes, yes,
Because
ma'am.
we've had people.
Yeah, you get dinged once at one location and once at the other, it's
Trouble.
bad.
Let me give
Yeah.
you an example. 3 BP stations were revoked at the same time,
Okay.
and they're out of business today.
Okay. Just
You
wanna
may,
make.
you may want to let your manager hold one of them. It works a lot better for you in the future, or consider it at least.
Say again, sorry?
You may want to let a manager hold it in one of your other restaurants. If you get an infraction in one, it counts at both
So it
locations.
stops them both.
Right.
3 can revoke your license at that location for 5 years. You may want to separate them with different people. I see in your eyes, you're now understanding what we're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so aside from that, you have 3 other restaurants, you said in Alpharetta. Do you have a program that you consistently put in place for training
Yes.
of your employees?
Yes.
Can you
I have
describe
one
that for us?
We have one when we started the restaurant, because obviously we had to do an Alpharetta as well, a program that we use, and then we're currently using another one, again, for the opening of, we just actually had a whole class for all of my current restaurants
Okay,
that we're going to apply to the ones in Alpharetta and
and is
overhead.
that a program of your, that you guys developed within, or is this a
No, it's
company you contract with?
a contract work, yes.
Okay.
He's licensed, and we have all of our staff managers go through the whole program so that they know what they have to do when the time comes to serve alcohol.
Okay, thank you.
Protect us from getting into trouble.
Any other questions from the board? No? In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we approve alcohol license AL 190819 for Butcher and Brew with the exemption from section 1.3D of the alcohol code.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that motion carries with a vote of
Welcome to
4
have,
to 0.
glad to have you here.
Congratulations, and you might as well stay there.
Stay close.
Okay, all right.
Number 4.
This is AL 190821, located in Commission District Number 2. A request for approval of an alcohol license for 1400 McFarland Road, LLC, doing business as Takayo. Name licensee is Louis Soon, for an application to sell malt beverages and wine for consumption on the premises at their place of business located at 6330 Halcyon Way, Suite 740.
Thank you. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And we're open.
My name is Louis Soon again.
I see that. Okay. And Takayo, is that, what kind of food is that?
Tacos.
Tacos. Very good.
Tacos and cold beer.
Very good. Is there anyone else that's here to speak in favor? Anyone who's here to speak in opposition? And is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
We got to clear the board first.
Oh, yep. There we go. And we're closed with a vote of 4 to 0. Board members, any questions for the applicant?
I am assuming the answers are the same. Yeah.
With the last,
I will
application.
suggest, though, if this gets approved, that sometime in the near future, you really consider letting somebody else carry it and do it
appreciate that.
before 2 at 1, 1 at the other, you're in a lot of trouble.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you don't need to
Yeah.
put yourself in that
Yeah.
position.
And we do put a lot of weight on that app, on the license holder, because we do anticipate that they are to be a daily part of the business operation. So a key manager somewhere along that lines who's actually hands-on, working with those employees, ensuring that your policies are adhered to is a good move. With that in mind, I'd like to make a motion that we approve alcohol license 190812, again with the exemption to section 1.3D of the alcohol code.
Second.
Motion is second, please vote. And that carries with a vote of 4 to 0.
Congratulations.
When are
Wish
you
the
opening?
best.
We're asking everybody.
Yeah, I think hopefully August, mid-August, something like that.
Mid-August, very
Yep.
good.
Very good.
And be thankful that your agenda item was at the beginning and not the end.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you very much, y'all.
Thank you. Number 5.
AL 190817, located in Commission District Number 3. This is a request for approval of an alcohol license for Mustic Group LLC, doing business as International Gourmet Foods. Name licensee is Fuad Selim Basic, for an application to sell malt beverages and wine by the package at their place of business located at 5925 Atlanta Highway, Suite 600.
Thank you. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And we're open with a vote of 4-0. If there's anyone here to speak in favor, if the applicant is with us, please come forward at this time.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hi there. If you could just give us your name.
My name is Mustafa Maludin.
Okay.
He's aware of the business. And my name is Fuad. I'm manager of the business.
Good. Do you have any comments you want to make before I call for other comments?
No,
Okay.
no.
Is there anyone else who's here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who's here to speak in opposition? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And we are closed with a vote of 4-0. Commissioner Levent, this is your district.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It looks like staff has got you checked off for approval. They go through all the records, so we don't have to, which is nice.
Thank you very much.
Yep. So you will be their day-to-day part of the operation?
Yes.
And you have a training program?
Yes, we do have.
And through whom is the training program?
As soon as you approve our license, we do have some company on the internet that they do specializing in training of the employees for handling alcohol, beer and wine. So we're going to use that company for training our employees.
And is that company familiar with Georgia laws?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And the Forsyth County too.
Yep, thank you for that answer. That was a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to suggest to people, especially my district, because I really never want to see anybody back up here. I hate to see people get in trouble. I'd like you to prosper and be very successful. It's been very successful when people put up a notice of what the penalty is to an employee that sells underage next to the time clock. A lot of times we have found that they didn't understand what their own personal penalty was, and now they recognize there is one. They're way more cautious. So it's just something, just a suggestion for you. Okay, thank you. Y'all have anything else you want to say? Anybody else?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
There is a motion. I make a motion that we approve AL 190817 as presented in our agenda booklet.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Please vote. And that motion carries with a vote of 4-0.
Thank you, gentlemen. And may I
Thank
ask
you.
where the location is exactly? I see the address.
It's on McFarland and Atlanta Highway.
Very good.
In the corner where it's a Maki Sushi.
I know
We
you
moved
are.
from Alpharetta downtown.
Okay, very good.
Wise
Wish you the best.
decision. Way to get to
Thank
Forsyth
you.
County.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Public hearing number 6. Mr. Brown.
Sketch Plat 190003. The applicant is the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. This is located in Commission District Number 1. It's a public hearing regarding sketch plat approval for the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners to build a 213,176 square foot middle school on 45.465 acres of property, currently zoned A1. The applicant's also requesting a variance to increase the number of parking spaces from 188 to 258. The property is located on Hyde Road.
Thank you. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And we're open with a vote of 4-0. If there's anyone who is here to speak in favor of this application, please come forward at this time.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Tim Amerson, Facilities Planner for Forsyth County Schools, and that'd be the Forsyth County Board of Education's request. I'll keep my comments very short and reserve my time for follow-up later. Quick history on this is that the school, middle school number 11, was actually identified back during our 2014 bond. We did have to wait and anticipate the redistricting for our DeSana Middle School to understand where the next relief school would be. The location was determined by our most overcrowded schools which was Vickery Creek, located to the south of the site, Otwell Middle School to the east, and Liberty to the north. Currently, we had 3,737 students this past year with a capacity of 3,100. That is 120% or 20% over capacity. The average 3-year growth for these 3 schools is about 3.2% annually. That's about another 120, 130 students per year in that middle school section. We target our search in the area of Georgia 20 to the north, Kelly Mill, Drew Campground to the south, and Betheview Road to the east. So we looked at that area. We determined we had 788 middle school age students just in that rectangle of the county. We did look at multiple sites. We had tried to make offers with some folks who did not want to sell. We had one owner we could not locate, even with a private investigator that did not want to respond to us. And we had other owners that had actually had their property under contract and could not talk to us. The Hyde property arose simple from 3 family members, all associated with the Mulder family. And their sister also had a piece that was not part of the assemblage, but we were able to work with her to come to a contract. And then the owners of the Blue Springs Farm, just on the south side of the property, to create the full 45-acre assembly. The proposed Hendricks Middle School will be similar to our previous middle school designs, especially the one you would see at Little Mill Middle School. And with this, what we're going to have is the administrative building where the cafeteria, media center, and administration wing will be on the upper level. And we will bench into the hillside for the classroom building, so the administration wing will be on the same level as the second floor of the classroom. This will help lower our profile, not be as prominent, that perspective as you come down Hyde Road. Building will have a gymnasium, a band room suite on the attached wing to the west of the building away from Hyde Road. We will have a physical education field which will be used for football and sports, but we do not install sports sliding or fixed bleacher seating. Going through our public participation meeting and responses, the primary concern from the community is the current and future impact of the traffic along Hyde Road. Hyde Road is a 45-mile-per-hour connector road between Drew Campground and Kent Highway. We submitted a traffic study as part of the original sketch plat review. We have preliminary designs for deceleration and center left turn lanes along and with on-site driveway queuing, where we actually move the cars through the parking lot in a queued fashion. We've created about 3,000 linear feet of stacking space for vehicles in the carpool lane. The other concern will be that for the sanitary sewer installation to the Cobb Creek service line. This connection is going to require now about 3,600 linear feet of sewer to be installed through the basin that goes down to Cobb Creek. But this is within the 5,000 foot rule that we tried to abide by to connect to sewer. Properties through this area are very large estate lots and some with agricultural use. We've been in contact with property owners. We contacted them all at the very beginning of the project to request permission to perform the survey through their properties. We've met with Forsyth County Water and Sewer to discuss the design, and they've also provided some alternatives that we're now reviewing to determine which is the best solution for making the final connection to the sewer line. And again, I'd like to request reserve time for follow-up comments as needed.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of this application? And I'll make a note that there is 5 minutes and 19 seconds remaining. I think it was actually maybe 21 or something, but I'll call for anybody who's here to speak in opposition to this application to come forward at this time.
Madam Chairman, if I may, just to read the rules again for the
Yes,
public
please.
hearings.
That would be great.
Each side, those in opposition for any of these items and those in support, are allotted 10 minutes to speak. Those who wish to speak must complete a public hearing form, which is just outside this room, and if there is more than one speaker for each side, the available time will be divided among those speakers, and we'll provide a reminder when that speaker has 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Okay, please come forward. If you can just give us your name first.
My name is Judy Ortlaw. I'm here to represent the Fieldstone Court area that is right on Hyde Road. We are in opposition of the new middle school that has been will be under construction, but our biggest concern is the traffic. Our entrance to the Hyde Road is where we live, and the road is so very narrow, and it really can't handle the amount of traffic that's going to be coming with the Hyde School. And so we're looking at a stretch of road from Highway 20 to Drew Campground that's 2 miles long. And they're going to be bringing 1,500 students into this school with buses. And they have said that there will not be sidewalks outside of their 45 acres that they're responsible for building the schools. So we are very concerned about not only traffic coming in and out of our community, because we do have an access road that comes through our community, empties into the enclave, which is a community behind us where there is a red light. So eventually this will be bringing a lot of traffic through our community, plus the kids that will be walking to school. We're very concerned about them not being able to get to school safely because there won't be sidewalks. When we met with the school board, when they presented this to us on the, I forgot the date, I think it was the 13th of May.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay. We addressed all these issues, and they basically were concerned with what they were responsible for. They really had no jurisdiction over the roads. So if this is something that we have to face as a community, we as a community want to be concerned about our safety too. And it is the traffic. And we are an adult community, so we're not an over 55, but we are an adult community of 93 homes. And so we don't, we really don't want a lot of traffic coming in and out of our community, but we do want safety entering our community. So
That's 2 minutes.
that can be worked with the DOT, we would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. If the next speaker would like to come forward.
Madam Chair, my name is Albert Childry. I'm 81 years old, and I've been a 20-year resident of Forsyth County. I'm a U.S. Army retired officer. I'm a retired registered professional engineer in Georgia. My wife and I live at 4830 Hyde Road. That's two houses north of the proposed school. I come to speak to you against the Hyde Road School. The land is not suited for a school, and there are 7 points to ponder. The first point is the site is a half horse farm and half homestead with numerous buildings, 2 homes, probably 2 or more wells, and lots of trees. Point 2, the horse farm has been there for at least 40 years. There are 10 to 20 horses boarded there, and when they die, they're usually buried there. How many? Anywhere from 40 to 80 graves that must be found and remedied. Number 3, the site is on top of a hill that drops off 50 to 70 feet with a lake and MSE walls proposed. Never has there been schools planned with high walls for kids to fall from and a lake which lawyers will call an attractive nuisance.
30 seconds remaining.
Number 4, the hill crest is a definite blind traffic hazard and has been for years. Number 5, Hyde Road is less than 2 miles long, as you've heard. There are 11 subdivisions that must use Hyde Road as a connection to the outside world. There are 621 homes in these 11 subdivisions.
2 minutes.
Traffic analysis says the traffic will not worsen as a result of the additional traffic.
Excuse me, sir. Hold on one sec. We've got the next 2-minute speaker coming up. We've got I know people have a lot to say. Would the board like to go ahead and extend an additional couple of minutes to each side so that we can can let everybody kind of
Yes.
complete their train of thought.
Yes.
I just wait
So-
till 10 minutes.
But do you want to wait till you find out how much that is exactly? or-
Yeah, I mean, that's okay. I just don't want to, I think we're going to run out of time, and I don't know whether we should extend it up front, just go ahead and let everybody take an additional minute from here
Yeah.
forward. So that would be, you know,
Madam Chair, I've got about 2 more minutes and I'll be
okay.
finished.
I know other people want to speak as well, and we need to be cognizant of letting everybody get their piece said. Would anyone like to offer a motion to go ahead and extend an additional per speaker amount of time? Up to 2
I
minutes
move that we extend 2 minutes
per speaker.
And
Okay.
you want to add any additional time to the overall clock? or-
Yes, and we'll add that, and he'll give the cue. If you can
So
give him
that would be an
additional.
additional 10 minutes total per side,
Correct, and
2
then
per
we'll add that
speaker.
to what was remaining.
I'll
as well
second
in
that.
rebuttal.
I'll
Great,
second that.
thank you. Is that a motion? In a second, please vote. And that time is added to the clock. Go ahead and
You
continue.
want me to continue, madam?
You can continue. You've got 2 more minutes to
Oh, okay.
execute your
The
speech.
analysis that they've done says it is to be expected that 444 new trips and 366 new outbound trips during the weekday AM peak hours. This analysis only deals with that portion of Hyde Road passing the school site. The analysis was made at one location on Hyde Road at the entrance to Rosewood subdivision, and according to one resident of the subdivision, was removed from the road at mid-afternoon. How can one location measure the traffic that may turn away from that location? The answer is that the school board is not concerned about the Hyde Road community. It only measures the impact at the school site. Number 6, Forsyth County has already stated that neither the sewer nor water line for fire hydrants are adequate for the school. So you, the county commissioners, will be asked to provide a remedy here. The existing water line along Hyde Road is a mere 6-inch PVC line, apparently not sufficient for fire line and potable water. As for the sewer, 3,000 feet of new sewer will be necessary, and this sewer will traverse at least 5 different properties.
30 seconds remaining.
Continue, you've got 30 more
The
seconds.
required sewer reservation agreement for Fowler Sewage Treatment Plant has apparently not been executed, nor approved by you, the Board of Commissioners. Neither have the 5 easements been acquired for the 3,000 feet of new sewer line. Number 7, and my last point, is that we've reviewed the soils report, and in at least 10 instances, the soils engineers point to issues
That
not
is 4 minutes.
in the plans. For example, the geotechnical engineers do not expect the on-site soils will meet the typical design criteria for backfill. If so, selected material will have to be trucked in.
Sir, I'm going to need to call the next
additional
speaker. I'm going to need to call the next speaker up. The next,
Your time's
your
expired.
time's expired.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your time and your interest in our dilemma.
Thank you.
More minutes.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Melva Payne. I'm at 4870 Rosewood Lake Drive. My home is at the across the road and the adjoining property north of the school, and I have been here for 22 years. My concern is about the traffic flow study that was made that the previous gentleman just referred to. It was done, as he said, in the middle of Hyde Road, and did not take into account how all the homes and traffic on either end of the middle of the road. We also learned that the duration of the study was less than or equal to 24 hours. And I question that. That is a very small sample size. I question what day of the week it was performed. Was it on a holiday? Was it on a weekend? Was it in school times? Was school even in session? So the validity of this study has a lot of questions to it that cannot be answered, or that I have not been informed of, that could change the number of cars and traffic going through our area. Another thing that is of concern to me, in trying to resolve the problem, I thought of the stacking. The gentleman, Mr. Amerman, referred to it as the queuing on the property, so traffic would not back up. That is another concern of mine. In an email, Commissioner Cooper, that you forwarded to Mr. Amerman, he responded back that there's 2,500 linear feet available for queuing or for stacking on school property. If depending on how they estimate linear feet per vehicle, that could be anywhere from 20 to 25 linear feet, meaning there's only an availability of anywhere from 100 or 125 cars available to be stacked. And again, my question on that is, that sounds like that sounds like an adequate number, but we do not know if it is adequate, because based on the study, there's supposed to be 1,500 students. What percentage of middle schoolers do they have vehicles coming in every morning? The Board of Education should know that and make that available to us and to you to say, is the traffic coming through, is the stacking going to be available? For instance, if 40% of the students of the 1,500 arrive in cars, that's 600 students. If there's an average of 1 student per car, we have over a deficit of 475 to 500 cars. If there's an average of 2 students per car, that's 300 cars coming through, and that's still a deficit of 175 to 200 cars. So again, my request is that you, as the commissioners, ask these questions to show back up the numbers and the statistics of what really happens. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
My name's Laura Sertich. I'm a registered voter in Forsyth County. My husband and I have lived on Hyde Road for over 20 years, and our property is adjacent to the proposed Hyde Road School. The Board of Education has put each one of you in a really uncomfortable position by asking you to approve the middle school on Hyde Road. I want to be clear. I'm not opposed to schools. I'm opposed to a school on this location. It's a bad choice. They're asking you to force fit on a property that was purchased at above market value, and it's not suitable for a school. They created this problem, and now they want you to fix it. There are so many issues, so many outstanding issues that make this site unsuitable, many of which you've heard already tonight. I'm very concerned about traffic especially. Hyde Road is a narrow country road with a dangerous hill and a blind spot that offers limited visibility. As stated earlier, my husband and I have lived there for over 20 years. There is simply no way, I don't care what you do, you will not be able to mitigate the additional traffic. Ask the locals, and not a less than a 24-hour botched traffic study. I am confident that you received bad information, and that, just as a reminder, only fools and fanatics are certain of things. Wise men always have doubts. The Board of Education has put you in a position to mitigate all of these problems that have been detailed tonight. And I want to just, he made it sound beautiful and simple and easy. It's not. They have really created problems for you, and they're asking you to mitigate these problems. It's going to cost a lot of money to force fit the school on this property. We are the taxpayers of Forsyth County, and we elected you to oversee these types of projects. We expect you to do your due diligence and to assess this project and make the right fiduciary decision on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Come on forward.
Hi, my name's Caroline Andrews. I'm 16 and a half. That's important because I almost have my 6 months. But I would just say, as a young driver in that community, I read through the traffic survey. The additional traffic, to me, it's already very hard turning onto Drew Campground or 20 because at certain times of day, traffic is almost impossible, and there are very limited sight distances. It's very hard to be certain that you're clear. Adding 300 or 400 additional vehicles on that road in the mornings and evenings is going to make things very difficult to navigate, especially West Forsyth. That's where I go. The traffic on Drew Campground and on Post is impossible to navigate. And with the addition of this middle school traffic, it will be very, very difficult to have a quick trip time. Additionally, a lot of people have mentioned this, there's a huge hill. I live in Talentworth, it's right there. I see people zoom by. So if you're going over that hill, the bus entrance and exit is supposed to be a few hundred feet away from it. You can't see over that hill until you're right there. I've had to stop because someone's truck stalled in the middle of the road, and you have to stop very quickly. And if you have a mom who's late getting her kid to school and she's speeding, she might not be able to see buses or other cars pulling in and out of both the bus and car entrance and exits. Additionally, the car line space has been called into question. That's on a good day. I was in middle school a few years ago, and if there's a surprise snow day, there's going to be more than a few hundred parents there to pick their kids up. There's going to be a lot. Or on rainy days, a lot of parents drop their kids off because they don't want their kids waiting at the bus and getting drenched before school. So the traffic survey also had to take into account the amount of parents in extreme situations, weather situations, or, for example, West Forsyth. There was a threat there last year, and a bunch of parents came and got their kids up in Carline. If that happens at the middle school, most parents don't want their kids staying there, so there's going to be large numbers going to get them. So this traffic survey, it read like it was a best-case scenario, but it seems like there hasn't been a lot of planning for the worst-case scenario. And if that sadly were to occur, there's not the adequate road space. Additionally, the traffic survey said that there would need to be left and right deceleration lanes, but it said there's no guarantee that these will happen. And that's a huge problem because you go 45 to having to turn right or left, you need room to do that. Additionally, emergency vehicles in mornings. If a house in Talentworth catches on fire, then there's no guarantee that you can get a fire truck. And even then, it was in an email, and it's up there. Sewage is not guaranteed. Water's not guaranteed. So you can't guarantee that if there is a fire at a property in one of the neighborhoods that you can A, get a fire truck there, and B, it'll have enough water to even put out that house. So for safety, for traffic, I am very, very, very strongly recommending that this school not go through. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, commissioners, for letting me speak. My name is Mark Redfern. I live in the Rosewood Lake subdivision. What I really would like to talk about tonight is safety. And it's, my daughter goes to school in Forsyth County, and the schools do a great job. I love the schools, and I love this county. I'm just here to see if you can help stop a bad decision. Because south, if you look at the plot map, the school property, the southern portion of the school property on Hyde Road, there's a large hill. And if you're going north on that hill, once you crest the hill, that's where the school property starts. And think of it this way, if you're doing 45, and if you see somebody stopped right in front of you, it takes you a couple seconds to react if you're driving. So you think, all right, 1,000, 1,001, 1,002, you probably traveled 50 to 75 feet. Then if you start decelerating, that's an additional 150 to 200 feet to decelerate to stop. If you add on top of that a situation where if your vehicle doesn't have good brakes, or if it's wet, that extends that distance further. So yes, there's a deceleration allotment of 600 feet, but that's gonna be really tight. So what I'm hoping you guys consider is making some modifications to the road to flatten it out so there's a little bit of a line of sight so you can actually see what is happening in front of the school. I'm not trying to fight the school being built. That's going to happen. I hate to say it, but I'm worried about somebody getting hurt on that road. My wife has had several close calls with people crossing over the line, almost having a head-on collision. I've almost hit people backing out or pulling into residences that would be right across from the school. And I'm not flying, but there are lots of people that do. And it's a cut through. And you think about it, sure, you put up a school sign that says, okay, school, warning, everybody slow down. If you're using it for a cut through and you don't live there, you don't care. You're just gonna get through as fast as you can. So really what I'm trying to get is, if there's a way to do a traffic study, again, let's really look and see what the road requirements are and make sure that the road is up to the standard that we really need to have for the school to be there. If you guys can do that, I would really appreciate it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, there is still a little bit of time remaining. That puts us at 16 minutes and 52 seconds of the 20 minutes that was allotted for this.
Okay. Did you want to go ahead? Have you turned in a speaking thing? Come on forward.
So there's 308 left.
308, okay. My name is Jean Vogt, and I've lived in Rosewood Lake for 21 years. And I'm just basically here to give some appropriate facts which other people have talked about. The first is they were talking about 600 cars being for the kids to be picked up. From Tim Amerson of the school board, he anticipates 2,430 daily trips of additional cars, teachers, people who work at the school, janitors, et cetera. That's 2,400 cars a day added on to the already 2,000 cars that travel on the road. And remember, it's only a 2-mile stretch of road, so you have an instant backup of vehicles. That comes to almost 450,000 additional vehicles a year on a small road with about 15 small turns in it and one very huge hill, which I think if when they looked at the property, they looked at it from a overhead like drone view, yeah, it looks great. But when you actually go and drive the property, there's too many possibilities for problems. So now on top of that, you add the buses. I do not know how many buses there are, but when I drive by Vickery Creek Middle School, there's a lot of buses out there, which take up twice the amount of space as a car. So now you've added probably 2,600 additional trips a day. On to that, they're saying that per the Board of Education, that at Highway 20, which if you're thinking, okay, I'm in a hurry, I gotta go, I'm going to pick the next kid up, take him to horse or whatever, at 20, there will be no room to make a left-hand turn. It will be a right-hand turn only. So what they're gonna try to do is just have, I don't know if they're planning on having a policeman there or what, but they aren't going to let people go left. And until the time that Highway 20 expands and Hyde Road is a crossover, which will not be probably 5 to 10 years, because down at where we own property on Highway 20 in Canton, it was already supposed to be completed and they haven't even started. So these are just some of the very specific problems with the plan. And I think instead of 600 cars in the queue, when you think of 2,400 cars, so that's over 1,200 in a small area, I think there's going to be a lot of parent and outrage when this goes in.
Thank you. All right, if there's no further comments for the last 30 seconds, we'll go ahead and Mr. Amerson, if you want to come back and use the remainder of the time, or if anyone from the school board would like to.
This time, be happy to try to address any questions that the board may have. I can't speak fully because I never have quite understood all the demographic information in the traffic study. I will comment that I was tickled when I saw the 135 staff trips that were coming and going both morning and afternoon. I was like, that doesn't make sense because our staff should not be leaving when they arrive in the morning. But I'll have to let the traffic engineering, the county engineers review that report that we provided and share those comments with the designs that we've created on our plan and the study.
Hey, is there anything else that you wanted to add? Because we'll have to close the public hearing before we enter into a back and forth dialogue.
No, not unless y'all have any other questions.
No, if there was anything that was previously brought up during the other comments, if you want to address that directly, you may do so at this time. Otherwise, I'll call to see if there's anyone else who wants to speak in favor, and then we'll close the public hearing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of this application? All right, is there a motion to close public hearing?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, please vote. And we are closed with a vote of 4-0. All right, commissioners. Commissioner Cooper, this is in your district, and
I have received quite a bit of correspondence from the folks that live in the area, and those things have been forwarded to Mr. Emerson. It seems to me that the main concern is traffic, safety and traffic. Am I correct? That pretty much is the top priority. So I'd like to bring John Kennard in on this and how you feel about the traffic study that was presented to engineering, and if it was done, from what these folks are saying, less than 24 hours of a traffic study, and do you feel as though it was adequate and the results of it?
Yes, Ms. Cooper. Our staff received a copy of the report today. I have not yet reviewed the report. Typically, the traffic studies are reviewed during the permitting process to ensure all the required improvements are provided prior to permitting. So I can't really speak to the traffic study tonight. I can have our staff review it and come back with some comments.
Mr. Emerson, if I could get you back wherever you are. There you are.
Commissioner.
At this time, it sounds like the community is the community around Hyde Road is very concerned about the traffic, and they feel as though the traffic study was not done for long enough to actually be able to log that which is the utilization of that road. So on that, that is something that seems to me that probably needs to be looked at again, and maybe another traffic study done. I don't know if that can come from the Board of Commissioners or if that is something that has to go from the Board of Education. But if they feel as though it was inadequate and there's just one done, and since it is something that is such a great concern to the community, I would suggest another traffic study be done, and be done long enough to give the type of numbers that you can get a good idea of what the traffic is, and move that into your projections of what you feel as though the traffic increase is going to be with the school.
And as we've discussed, we'd be willing to go ahead and proceed with doing the traffic study. Now, the next challenge we have had is that if we do the traffic study at this point, we are not counting school traffic, which means then we'd have to postpone that traffic study until school starts in August.
Well, even to get a better idea maybe of what's going on now, and then blend that with your projections.
I will make that inquiry, and if, like, I can work with John Kennard's office. We could even bring in a second engineering firm to review ours as well as do their own study.
Okay, and from what I'm hearing with the road, the hill is a big issue.
Yes.
And possibly if there could be a traffic study done at both ends, where you have an idea of what the traffic is.
The traffic counts.
The traffic counts, yes,
Okay.
as part of that.
I can work with Tim Allen and John Kennard to identify how they would like to see that traffic study set up. Again, we've requested GCA perform the test as any other user, like if a developer was to move in that site, they evaluate the traffic that passes through that site, through that frontage area. So those traffic counts are made with their camera system so they can identify the vehicles and the cars that pass by at what times and frequency.
Okay.
But we can work with John's office. We'll go ahead and I would assume someone like Moreland Altobelli would be appropriate to contact.
We could certainly, they could certainly be a firm that would assist in the review of the study, the current study, and possibly providing some additional study if necessary.
John, on that too, you said that usually that's not done until permitting, that you evaluate the study until permitting. Is there a way that we could move this up before permitting and evaluate that study once you get the information?
Yes, we can do that. Like I say, it's typically, we've not seen any design drawings yet because I don't know that they've designed the project yet. Tim could speak more to that, but it's not been submitted for permitting, so it's not actually been reviewed yet. So all of those issues that have been brought up are all issues that our staff would review when reviewing prior to permitting. When we have a set of design drawings, they then have to certify site distance for their intersections that they're constructing and ensure to us that they're providing safe access for the school entrances. And at that time, if any modifications need to be made to the storage of the XL, decel lanes or the left turn lanes, then we have make those adjustments to the design prior to permitting. But we can certainly work with Tim and his staff and our staff to review what's been done thus far, and if we need additional information in order to come back with a recommendation that we're comfortable with the proposed school location and entrances and the improvements that they're providing, then we can do that.
Thank you. I think it's really important to this community that they feel as though that has been looked at and engineered correctly.
And
Because
yes, with
in their community.
sketch plat plan that we present, based on the timing, it is before we, finalize the final engineering. So the questions he has for dimensioning of the lanes, the lengths of the turn base and all that. We did verify though, for the question of the hill that comes up, the site distance required at that point for the bus driveway, which is our south driveway, is 500 feet in the 45-mile-an-hour zone, and we've had that confirmed by the traffic study engineer that we do have that site distance of 500 feet minimum, and we've identified that we've got actually about 650 feet to the top of the hill when the car comes top of the hill to where our driveway be located. And I know it's a little confusing of where the Blue Creek Farms driveway is and their approach to that. We've heard some other concerns about the landscaping, trees and bushes that also obscure that, and that will be removed as we make improvements for the road to include our turn base.
Or site availability?
Yeah.
Okay. One other thing, and this is sort of jumping the gun on it, I understand, but just to run this by you, John, the possibility of changing that speed limit, decreasing it by 10 miles per hour at the school area.
During the permitting process, we'll establish on the final drawings prior to permitting a school zone. So within that school zone, it will be a school zone reduction of 10 miles per hour for the school zone. Current posted speed limit's 45, so the school zone will be posted at 35.
Okay, and I don't know if we could extend that out even some because of this hill that the folks are so concerned about.
Well, if in fact there is a site distance issue, then we could certainly look at a speed reduction further out, and we will take a look at that and make a determination, whether or not that needs to be accommodated.
Now, and again, the school zone postings are usually typically done in the area of 500 to 700 feet before our property line. So that would extend your northbound approach on Hyde Road. You would be seeing that school zone as you're coming up the hill and not as you're cresting the hill or going over the hill. So that would be posted in front.
Very good, thank you. Also with this, it seems like from what some of the folks have said, that this road is also used as a cut-through. And some folks, if you're, using it as a cut-through and you're not thinking about the school, that may be a good reason also for this to be extended out even further for this speed limit change and reduction. Another thing that I was wondering, you had asked for extra, what was it, 70 extra parking spaces? Was the variance?
The formula for parking is designed for one parking place for every 10 students, which equates to about 150 parking places. And then the maximum allows you to go up 25%, which would take us to about 188. And typically with our sort of internal formula, we've come up for the staffing, visitors, and that traffic, as well as we've designed our parking, and this includes buses, for 258 parking places, because we do have to identify those parking bays for the 24, 25 buses as a parking space.
My question on that is, does that also, does that parking reduce the required 25% of impervious surface that's required for the Big Creek watershed that's there, that's in that area?
I mean, it would be paid parking, yes, we will have to accommodate that parking into our calculation for the
Because
watershed.
you have to have that 25% of impervious
yes.
surface, exactly. Okay. Anybody else on the board?
Now,
have
I have
questions?
a couple of questions for John Kennard. In here, it's showing that they're looking for a dedication of 40 feet of right-of-way from the center line. Is that adequate, or do we need 60?
That would be adequate. That's the standard required right-of-way for a collector road,
Okay.
which is what Hyde Road is, and so 40 foot from center line would be adequate.
Okay. And the other thing is there anything on the long-range plan that speaks to any type of improvements that are planned for Hyde Road?
Currently, in the county's comprehensive transportation plan, there are no proposed improvements identified along Hyde Road.
Okay.
And in our bicycle and pedestrian walkways plan, there's currently no proposed sidewalk project along Hyde Road. Now, when those plans are updated, those could be looked at and added to in a future plan. But at any point in time, the board could add those or identify those type projects along Hyde Road, and then they would be subject to board funding.
But we are requiring them to stub in at least their portion of the sidewalk for any future project that would be.
Yes, the Board of
Done by the county.
Education, they will be placing sidewalks along their road frontage so that if a future sidewalk project along High Road is identified and funded by the board, then we would have sidewalks to tie to.
Okay. I have a question for Tim, too. In your estimation, is the water service and sewer service adequate right now as it stands, or is there an additional burden that we placed upon the county to provide that?
I believe the comments were that improvements would have to be made to the water system and wastewater system. Those expenses will be at the Board of Education's expense. They may have to extend the water line up to the site to provide fire protection and extend the wastewater lines.
Right. So and that would be the case of any development that they would be required for that. Does it, in your estimation, create any additional burden on the overall infrastructure of the area where your water pressures or water would be inadequate?
I don't see this
based on this additional user.
This type of use being any greater on a peak during a peak time than other users. So with our system improvements and our capital improvement plans that we have, I don't see this as requiring any kind of change to our current plans.
Okay, thank you.
I've got one thing. I just think I know that schools cost a fortune now, and I know that the burden of it goes on all the taxpayers, but it does seem like it would be a good idea in the future that when a school comes in, since we do promote and try to promote walking to schools if we can, and it is a impact on the roads, and it's an impact on the communities, that we could try to put in some extra dollars to connect the communities that are within so close. And I know sidewalks cost a fortune, but it helps the schools, and it helps the county too, to keep more cars off the road. And if we could just, as we're planning, if we could just put in some extra just to connect, which I know it means right-of-way acquisition, or maybe that means we put in some planning on our end to plan ahead for that, and which I know, how do you plan when you don't know where the school's going to go? But then at least it would take some burden off in some way when you've got people standing up and saying, how can our schools connect? If we had that at least to be able to think about in the future, to be able to connect those communities to it. Because when you do think, like with Wallace Tatum Road, now we're trying to come up with, which is a fortune, to get that school back to the park, which is what we're trying to do, to be able to get the kids along that way. I think that's going to be $1 million or more to do that. But it's still, it's a community enhancement, but I mean, Todd was talking about how many people walk along Post, and it's used a lot, and that's, every kid that walks is somebody not on the road.
Correct. But with regards to school, and this is where I have to defer to what the state law and our mandate is, because we do get state funding to construct schools, that does limit us to only doing it with what we call the limits of construction of the school site, and it does not allow us to build sidewalks, road improvements, intersection improvements off-site of our campus. Now, the infrastructure such as the water and the sewer that operates the school is one of the things we have to pay for to operate the school. But we're not allowed to build the sidewalks beyond our property, to make the intersection improvements.
With that dollars.
With the tax dollars that are collected for Forsyth County schools.
But there's other pots of money.
There is, and there's grant money too sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, maybe
Within the funds that we collect to build our schools, we are somewhat restricted. That has to go into the bricks and mortar, as we call it.
You're done. I've got a few if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Counselor, my first one's going to start with you, and then I've got a series of others I just want to touch on just for clarification. Is the school board required to come in front of the Board of Commissioners for approval?
With respect to the land use itself, the ability to plant a school somewhere in the county, yeah, the law in Georgia is that entities like school systems are immune from zoning regulations.
So this is nothing more than a courtesy of them bringing this for a public comment period and such, because they don't have to come to us for approval, do they not?
Right. So no, the sketch plat process is part of our Unified Development Code, so I think the better argument is that they would be immune from it. Now, there is some case law that suggests that they have to comply with local codes, things that augment and enhance safety, those sorts of things that every responsible entity would think they have to comply with. But there is no question that with respect to whether we have the ability under our zoning and land use code to say you can't put a school here, the answer is no. And so I do believe the Board of Education made a decision some time ago that they would still try to comply with our code to the extent that they could on all aspects of our code, save for the zoning designation itself, if that makes sense.
And I just for the explanation, so everybody hears, if we were to just walk away from this and not want to give an answer, they can still build their school. We can't stop them. The state law doesn't allow us to. But once they choose to do it on their own, our staff, by law, the counselor explained it, would get involved for roads and safety and what we require for those aspects, looking at their traffic study. Our staff can add to some of these things and make it more safe. They could even decide that hill needs to be lowered a little bit to give more sight distance. Our staff could decide that the speed limit on the overall road or most of the road goes down to 35, so when they lower it 10 miles an hour for the school zone, it could go down to 25. The state law also requires that a speed limit can't drop more than 10 miles an hour, and there must be a 600-foot warning sign that this is getting ready to take place, and it starts to impede upon whether or not there are other roads coming in between that distance of that 600 feet, whether or not they can do it or not. But our staff knows those laws and know those rules. I would encourage our board to ask our staff to ask that road to be a 35-mile-an-hour road, at least a majority of it, to bring the school down to 25. It is much safer, not only for the students and the parents, everybody in the area, but for our officers that work those roads. We've had them struck before, sitting out there doing traffic. So that would probably be one of the smartest and safest things, is lowering that hill and lowering the speed limit on that road, and then lowering it again for the school zone as well. Those would be my inputs when it comes to water lines and all that. Our staff's going to make sure all that's also up to par. They're not going to let them just do something that doesn't work. They're just not going to. But we don't have the right to deny the school board. We just don't have that legal right. They're here as a courtesy for us. And we use this as a public forum for public comments, and to hope that the school board will accommodate those public comments, and the newspaper writes them, and that's kind of where we are. Oh, one more. 3,000-foot stacking lane, does it work? I can only share with you my experiences. They had middle school at Vickery had the driveway that goes up. It didn't hit 3,000 feet, and it didn't have a big decel lane, and the county did step in, and we did come up with some funding to make it a 900-foot stacking lane outside of the school. I'm assuming it's close to 3,000 now. I don't even think it is quite 3,000, but it doesn't appear that cars stick out in the road like they used to. So I have to assume when they came up with their 3,000-foot stacking lane, that it wasn't just drawn out of a hat, that they looked at all their schools and what they're dealing with. And I think since those times, I've watched them build a couple of the schools, and it seems like they've done a whole lot better job, that the cars do fit in. And I know you've done your calculations of how long a car is with space between the car and how many will fit in there, but they don't all show up at the exact same time. And I'm sure that's part of their calculations as well, what the time frame which cars show up and come in and out of there. The only one that we have our biggest challenge with is going to be Midway Elementary School. It backs up traffic a mile all the way down to Walmart every afternoon at around 3 p.m., so stay away.
That's one of the older schools and older designs, and it's really
It is,
not.
but they figured out my point.
Right, right, and I know that they've done some work over at South Forsyth Metal to try to fix the issues there, and they've done a good creative job there. So I'd like to kind of take this back to the district.
One last comment, if you don't mind.
Please.
They did a safety school program for schools, kids to school program for the Vickery schools.
Safe Routes to School.
And those are wonderful. Are those programs still available for us to file for grants? And do we need to do it, or do you all?
Currently, there's no funding available for grants. We keep watching. We last had tried to put the Hall Creek Lakeside with the Eccles Road connection back through Mashburn Samples Road. That was rejected. Well, somebody else was awarded. We weren't rejected necessarily. But there has not been any other grant opportunities through Safe Routes to School at this time.
I think we got it studied but not implemented.
So Commissioner Cooper, right? I would suggest that our board supports you in getting some put in there, figure out how we can do it. We do have some emergency funds for safety in our SPLOST dollars. We've done it at DeSanto. It's super dangerous when these children have to walk on an uneven shoulder of a road. It just really is.
Well, I think at this point, I would like to hear from the district commissioner on this with respect to whether or not she'd like to see some additional information come back to her at this point, or additional assurances prior to making a decision on sketch plat, or if we're comfortable that the permitting process and all of the things that follow on are going to be sufficient.
What I would like is, since there has been so much information shared, that I would like for us to come back with the results of a traffic study, and that prior to the permitting. Also with the speed limit, if that can be done, I would like to see that prior to as well. And then we can consider the passing of the sketch plat and the variance for the parking spaces. And on those, again, on those parking spaces, that impervious surface cannot exceed the limitation of 25% for the Big Creek watershed area. So.
I have a question for Counselor as well. Would it be appropriate to consider a motion that would approve the sketch plat with conditionally that those deliverables come forward before any permitting takes place? Or would it be best just to punt on the entire thing?
Madam Chair, I might recommend that it just be punted until the requested information comes in.
Yeah.
And also, Madam Chair, if I could, just for purposes of making sure that I answer Commissioner Levent's question adequately, there's some case law, City of Decatur versus DeKalb County, which makes a distinction. It actually goes through this analysis and talks about the immunity from zoning, but that the local boards of education or counties, et cetera, are not necessarily immune from local codes like building codes, engineering codes, electrical codes, stormwater codes, things that are the point I was trying to convey was practical things that simply ensure the integrity of the facility itself from a public health, safety, and welfare standpoint. Madam Chair.
Thank you. So permitting still applies in every case. It's simply the land use issue that is not up for discussion.
Right, and where it gets a little gray is when you have a unified development code that mixes both land use and then performance criteria. That's where it gets a little gray, and so we've always appreciated the Board of Education coming in and trying to do its best to work with us on those issues.
Thank you.
I have to give Mr. Emerson and the Board of Education credit in that you've had meetings with us, you know, along. But this is just, it's a big project. And the community is very concerned. And I think it's very important that we try to alleviate those concerns and meet the needs and make sure that everyone's happy and is glad to see the school come in on Hyde Road. So would like to punt this until later.
And with that question of punt, I assume that it would be just for decision only, not a public hearing? And
I'm not sure how that works.
Well,
Can
we
you
could
tell
bring
me
it
how
back
that
as
goes?
old business once those studies are completed.
That's correct. You've had our obligatory public hearing. It can come back for decision only with the additional supplemental information Commissioner Cooper's
Wonderful,
requested.
okay, thank you.
How does that affect y'all's time frame? Are y'all gonna just circumvent and do what the law allows you to do and start building anyways, or are you okay with
we don't,
a time frame?
Yeah, we don't plan to let this project till more about October. We look for an 18-month construction period for middle school, and that gives us a chance to have the school constructed and ready for us to start moving in that May, June of that year. Gives us May, June, July to move into school before we actually open the doors. So that's why we try to look at that October timeframe to kick one off for this size.
When do schools go back in?
The first week of August typically, yeah.
So can you get a study done in August and have some of these answers for Commissioner Cooper by September 5th and do additional public hearing in case these folks want to come back and have more comment? I mean, would that
And
resonate with you?
that's like I
okay?
said, that was the challenge with my question was, we could go ahead and say after the 4th of July week, we could do one at the end of July. But then that'd be the question of the challenge that it was not during
Correct.
school.
Right.
Well,
Correct.
yeah, exactly. You don't have
Can you do
school
your
traffic
study in
going
the
through.
first week of August and bring Commissioner Cooper back what she needs, and maybe our staff can too?
Okay. And with,
Is September 5th too early, or should it go to the 19th?
Right, and I would leave that at the commissioner's discretion whether or not she wants to have another public hearing. It would technically just come back as old business unless it was her desire. We can always add additional public hearings
And,
if that's,
I feel like
or if
that-
there's a public participation meeting you'd like to take place in the medium. That's another option as well.
Another option. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
that'd be my question, to allow school to get the traffic study redone by a second firm, and then get those results back to y'all in time to get a September
And
hearing
that-
on this.
And that the traffic study is done once school starts.
And if
So
we
we get an
need to
idea
go
of all
ahead
of
and
that.
begin our deliverables for the permitting review, because it does take us several tries to answer all the questions, we can go ahead and get the preliminary submittals in and go through that. And again, until everything's set, not have the permit issuance available till we've answered the questions and address them in the plans.
You set a public hearing, you could always change it, but at least you'd have it advertised. Because if you do a old business and then you decide to do a public hearing, you're gonna have to have at least 15 days to advertise, which pushes it out again. Just a thought.
Pleasure.
I think I'd rather have it come back as old business because of the comments that I have gotten. It was traffic. It was traffic and safety. That was the concern. And I know there were some other topics there, but traffic and safety is the main thing. And the other issues that were brought up, I have a list with the phone conversations and the emails I've exchanged with these folks of the other concerns. We can talk about those, but that's the primary thing, and that's what we've got to take care of.
That's correct. And, again, that was what we really heard from them, especially with the rush hour times, as a concern as it was currently, even before the school was there, and trying to make sure the public knows that they need to communicate those things to Forsyth County and engineering when those problems occur, so they can start working.
Thank you very much, and just to reiterate, now, I know I've said it 1,000 times, but just again, a new traffic study that, once school starts, and for the count, 2 locations there for the count of cars as well.
I'll coordinate with John's office to make sure we identify the locations and the scope of work for this second traffic study, to make sure we incorporate anything they can see as traffic engineers to understand.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson.
And you need a motion to move it out to a certain date for the old business?
Right. I mean, I do think that would be appropriate and in order to go ahead and set our mark.
Okay, let's move it out to old business of September the 2nd.
Or the 5th.
September
I'm
5th
sorry,
or 19th?
excuse me, I'm sorry, September the 5th.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that motion carries with a vote of 4-0, and we will be hearing this hopefully after the new traffic study's been completed. September 5. Okey doke. Number 7.
AZ 190014, located in Commission District Number 2. It's a public hearing for a county-initiated request regarding the amendment of condition number 26, placed on zoning application 3728.
Thank you. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that motion carries with a vote of 3-0 with Commissioner Mills temporarily out of the room. If there is anyone who is here to speak in favor of this application, please come forward at this time.
Madam Chair, I'm Kirk Winterstein. I live in Forsyth County. I speak only for myself, and this is what I believe. I speak in favor. I believe that more and more we are realizing we need to manage the welfare of our county. We need to attract good quality, high-paying, sustainable jobs. The benefit to us of moving forward will be to the reduction in future increase in traffic and a diversity of our tax base. We have just recently received new assessments on our property values, and I think it should be clear we need to manage our tax base by increasing the number of employers. And to do that, we need to attract more decision makers to become more familiar with our county. By increasing the number of suites down at the Halcyon, we will be facilitating more decision makers to locate into Forsyth County. They'll be able to see what our county has to offer. And this will help us build a sustainable economy, and that will benefit the citizens of Forsyth County. Madam Chair, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Winterstein. Is there anyone else who's here to speak in favor of this application? Come on down.
Hello, my name is Jay Dargy, and I'm speaking on behalf of this Roca Point and the Hotel Development Group. We feel that an all-suites product within the Halcyon development will be a higher class hotel and command a higher average daily rate for guests staying there. It would definitely increase tax revenue, but also give us a high-end hotel where business clients, families could stay and really elevate the level of the hospitality rooms in Forsyth County. With regards to the meeting space, I'm pleased to report to you that for the Embassy Suites, we have found a way to add an additional almost up to 1,800 additional square feet of meeting space in the Embassy. So we're doing that right now. We've modified the plans. We heard you loud and clear that you want more meeting space, so we're going to do that on the Embassy Suites. And our intent is to also add more in the other suites hotel.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who's here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who's here to speak in opposition? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And our public hearing is now closed. Is it Mr. Dargy? Can you come up? I have a question for you, or two, and the other commissioners may as well. Is there in this amendment to the zoning condition, it speaks to ample meeting spaces. Is there a total number of square feet of meeting space that's captured in your original zoning, and then a revised number that reflects that additional? Do you have a projected number of minimum square feet of meeting space?
It really depends on what the supply-demand metrics are, and what we feel is that if we can have two all-suites hotels, we anticipate, for example, the Embassy Suites being the larger hotel. That's probably where a lot of the traffic will go to because it does have the meeting space. We will have probably about 128 to 130 keys at the Homewood site. And we're probably going to have about another 1,500 to potentially even 2,000 square feet of meeting space there is what we're projecting right now. But I don't have any specifics on like if we're required to have, X amount of meeting space by brand standards. That's really not in the Hilton brand standards.
Okay, but is there a total amount that you project that you minimum? Obviously you're saying it's a demand.
Right.
But what would your total minimum anticipated amount of meeting space? Because this amendment to the zoning condition is going to address both properties. This is so that both can have that same suite model.
So what we're looking at is the Embassy Suites will probably have, now we're hoping to get close to 6,000 square feet.
Okay.
And if we can add another 1,500 to 2,000 at the Homewood, then that would be great, because then we can get up to about 8,000. One of the things that we're looking at is how we categorize meeting space. For example, we have the ballrooms in the Embassy Suites. There's 3 ballrooms, and that big open space can be divided up into 3 separate ballrooms. But we're also going to add additional space there that's going to be for breakout
rooms, right.
Exactly. And so what would happen at the Homewood, we anticipate, is that we wouldn't necessarily have a ballroom there. The demand generators for that type hotel are not going to really have that.
Right.
But there'll be rooms that you could have breakout spaces. You could
overflow
get
from the Embassy
75,
Suites.
100, exactly. And so if there's, let's say, a large meeting that's happening, a lot of business clients, you could have venues at 2 different hotels, and we plan to have shuttle service back and forth anyway, so because it's pretty close to each other, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Is there a minimum amount of space that you'd be comfortable committing to as a numerical value?
One of the things that I don't mind committing, but the problem is, will Hilton commit to it?
Right.
And what does the design really allow for? Because the lot constraints are interesting. It's actually, the Embassy was a challenge to get it into the 1.37 acres that it's at.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like building in a downtown urban market.
Right.
And what we see whenever we're doing the Homewood and the 6 stories that we're projecting now, and how we get the key count in there, the architects are very creative, and they're trying to figure out how we can maximize those spaces. So, and then we have to go to Hilton's board and get that approved through Hilton as well. So, we're definitely going to have meeting space, but I can't commit to a specific number today until we see exactly what Hilton also says in their architectural team, because it has to meet the brand standards to be a Homewood Suites, for example. So it's got to have certain amenities and other things in there to do that. But we were able to pull off what we did on 1.36 acres and put 160 key Embassy in there with 6,000 square feet. I think we can do it at the Homewood site.
Thank you. Any other questions from other commissioners?
I just wondered if you do have a projected opening date on either.
On either. Actually, we just, we're doing our dirt work right now. We are going to be getting our full building permit. We got our foundation permit, we broke that out, and so the dirt work's already going. And our construction schedule, we just modified it a little bit a couple of days ago. So the Embassy is going to take probably about 16 to 18 months to get out of the ground. And then it depends on when we close on the second site, and when that goes forward, the architectural drawings will probably take about 6 months to complete that process. And then from there, we're probably looking at another 12 to 14 months on the Homewood site from that.
I just wanted to thank you for trying to add the extra 1,800 feet of meeting space and listening to us on that, because that is so important to us.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we definitely, we want to make this the first class hotel here in Forsyth County, and we're real proud about it. I've been looking to do something like this here in this county for the last 4 years, and as a hotel developer, and when this opportunity came about with Roca Point, it was just great, and we put a lot of money and resources behind it. We're excited.
Thank you.
All right, well, I did speak with Commissioner Brown on this one as well earlier, and he is, as we all are, fairly excited about having this new opportunity come here for Forsyth to bring in and support our business development efforts. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the zoning condition amendment AZ 190014 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that motion carries 4-0. thank you. Okey dokey. Public hearing number 8, and just as a reminder, we will be postponing the decision until July 11th.
SP 190004 LS Storage LLC is the applicant. This is located in Commission District Number 4. It's a public hearing regarding sketch plat approval to build a self-service storage mini warehouse totaling 11,400 square feet on 1.577 acres of property, currently zoned CBD. The applicant's also requesting a variance to reduce the minimum lot size for a self-service storage development from 2 acres to 1.5 acres. The property is located north of Dahlonega Highway, approximately 800 feet east of the intersection with Allen Thomas Road, and we do not have a red line version of conditions to display.
Thank you. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And we are open with a vote of 4-0. If there's anyone who's here to speak in favor, please come forward at this time.
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Ethan Underwood with Miles Hansford and Talent. We have a short presentation, but you may be familiar with this property. We've actually got 2 other applications before you. And in speaking with Commissioner Mills, I did want to make sure that we're trying to present this as an either-or situation. We're here to ask the Board of Commissioners is what is the best use for this property. The property, as you can see, is 1.577 acres, and that number is important because this property was zoned some time back. It's on the Dawson County line up in the Silver City community, and you can see it highlighted in blue, zone CBD. But it was zoned pursuant to ZA 2320, and it's an oldie. It's so old, site plans were not required at the time this property was zoned. The use was listed in the application, but in fact, the use was specified in the zoning conditions. That's what we wanted to bring up. You may note that many warehouses are not even allowed in the CBD zoning category any longer. So it's a grandfathered use, but the zoning condition says specifically the subject property shall be used for mini warehouse use only. And that's it. And because of that, we got an opinion from the county that says because of that zoning condition, you're grandfathered. You get to use that use. Well, we came to you, and it's pending before you is a request for an open storage facility. We have a client who runs an arborist business, and he wants to develop an open storage yard. That has not yet been decided, but we do know there's still some contest from some neighbors. So what we said is, okay, because of that, the alternative is if we can't get the open storage yard approved, we've got to have a site plan approved to get a land disturbance permit for the only use that this property is allowed to be developed for. Now, staff, when we were filing this, and they followed their usual protocols, they said, well, because the current code says that many warehouses have to have at least 2 acres, you got to get a variance. Our position is that that's really not necessary because if we're grandfathered as to the use, we have to be grandfathered as to the acreage. But if the case is you got to get a variance and we can't get the variance approved with a sketch plat, we have a piece of property that is completely unusable. Can't be built for anything other than mini warehouses, and by the way, you can't get a permit for mini warehouses. So we're in a pickle. What we're working to do, and the reason we've asked for the hearing, let's go ahead and have the hearing. If there's some folks in the audience who want to state their concerns, we're glad to hear them. We've been working with some neighbors, but we're here to say, what's the best use? Is it the mini warehouses? Is it the open storage yard, or can we work on something different? But we wanted to go ahead and have the public hearing tonight and ask for you all to defer that while we continue to work with the public. That said, if we can't get the open storage yard, we're asking for an approval of the sketch plat. The property, as we said, was zoned with no site plan, so we got to get a site plan on file. And what it allows, this is a conforming site plan. It complies with all regulations for Forsyth County, other than the variance that we don't think we need, but and the acreage. But we're asking for a 57-unit development, no other variances, and at this point, we'll defer to any questions that you have.
Just, I just want to clarify, you said it was ZA 2023?
Correct.
Okay, thanks. All right, is there anyone else who's here to speak in favor of this application?
Commissioner?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I thought you were wrapped up.
I was, but I think the number, it's 2320.
2320, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor? Is there anyone else who's here to, is there anyone who's here to speak in opposition to this application? All right, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion, second, please vote. And we are closed with a vote of 4-0.
I want to ask Tom a question.
Yeah,
if you
go
don't
right
care.
ahead.
Tom, when you and I were talking about this, didn't you mention something about it didn't have to have a site plan?
Well, yes, and Ethan and I traded some voicemails today. We weren't able to catch each other, but we will prior to this coming back on your agenda. I'm still not certain that we're going to require a sketch plat, but I want to hear from him what he heard from other staff people.
Okay.
Or it could always be a racetrack.
Because since this had two different things that had come before us, but it does have to go by the Coal Mountain overlay now, correct?
We're not objecting to that.
Okay.
I have a question actually for our counselor. Do you agree with the notion that there's a grandfathering of acreage in addition to a grandfathering of use?
Right, so I was with Mr. Underwood just up until that moment. I was in agreement. So I don't think the analysis is quite that complicated. I think that it is true that when you have a piece of property zone that says this is the only use you can make on that piece of property, and the way we do our zoning, where it literally works as an amendment to our zoning map, I think that's a great argument that irrespective of how our code has changed, you can do that on that property. However, I think a variance was still the right call here, because that's the whole reason we ever have variances, is because someone comes in and says, I can't do anything on my property unless you grant me this variance to these performance criteria that would otherwise cripple my ability to what I otherwise can do. That's exactly the position they're in. There are these performance criteria that will otherwise defeat what I otherwise have the right to use. So I think a variance is the right call. I think the board ought to give strong consideration in favor of that variance should you decide that that is the use you want this property to be used for.
I have one question. If they build this, did we not pass something one time that stated that these type of warehouses, that the garages cannot face the roadway? And will this comply with that?
The new code actually has three types of storage facilities. One's a climate-controlled facility. This is not that. The other is what's called a courtyard arrangement, which has the roll-up doors, but that's exactly what you're talking about, and this is facing in. There is a third type that's still in the code, which is called a mini warehouse facility, and that's what this falls under. There's no requirement for the doors to be pointing in a particular direction.
I thought we did that. If it was industrial, it didn't have to be. If it was CBD, it did. Maybe I'm wrong.
I defer to Mr. Brown on that. I'm not sure.
And if we don't, maybe we should look at that.
Well, we did progressively step up, how difficult it is to get approval, and the mini warehouse product is the most difficult of the three that Mr. Underwood just described. For this property, it goes back to the fact that he's got this zoning condition limiting him to this particular use.
And how would it affect them in 5 or 10 or 15 years if, let's say we do a variance down to I think it's 1.57 acres. If GDOT comes in there and widens the road and has to take part of that? Because that's going to come. I mean, you've already talked to GDOT about this, I think.
It shouldn't matter for a variety of reasons. Are you suggesting if GDOT takes the property and they've not yet built out? Is that
or something? I mean, how does that start to affect
well,
them?
a couple of things. If they've built out and GDOT takes the property, then as we know, they will seek whatever the consequential damages are necessary to reimburse them for any value they've lost on the ongoing business. If they've not built out yet, remember, we work with GDOT on some language that allowed GDOT to basically build in an automatic variance as a means of lessening the damages GDOT was having to pay.
And the landscape.
That's correct.
The overlay
and so I think either or they're going to be fine.
So I guess my concern is, let's say they build this out and they build it where you don't see the garages, and GDOT comes in and they have to wipe out that section of the buildings, and then you've got all the garages showing. So does our staff try to make them set aside some land, at least set it back? Although we can't make them give it to GDOT free, but do we at least make them set it back to where the buildings don't get wiped out, to where the garages don't?
Well, that's what I was talking about, though. Remember, we worked out that language, and I don't know if it's directly applicable here, Tom, or not, that said that basically there would be some automatic built-in variances to account for that if, in fact, the divergence was based upon condemnation. So just something to think about.
I mean, but John, would you have them set it back knowing this is going to come?
We cannot require them to set back any further than where the proposed right-of-way is.
If I may.
Proposed right away.
The right-of-way that they will be dedicating is where they should set back from.
Well, that may help.
That on the sketch plat.
And that would, see, I'm just looking at the future, way in the future doesn't wipe that out. You have all these garages facing this road now.
Commissioner, if I may, the sketch plat we have submitted contemplates the widening of Highway 9 to 120-foot wide.
Excellent, thank you for that. That's what I was getting at.
Tom, would the cleaner way to have done this would just simply have to gotten a zoning condition amendment to remove that condition and allow them to use some sort of other more appropriate by today's comp plan standards commercial use? I mean, it seems like we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
I don't think they want that condition removed.
Well, right.
That's the condition's their ticket to a use that's no longer allowed.
Right, that's my point.
And none of the two uses they're asking for goes with the new comp plan.
Correct.
Correct.
It's correct, but respectfully, this is so out in the boondocks and next to some really...
It is, but someday it will not be out in the boondocks.
Really unattractive property in Dawson County that adjoins it.
It might become a beautiful property in Dawson County. You know, here's the thing. This was zoned 20 years ago. You were actually the original zoning attorney on this.
I don't believe
well,
so.
according to, you're the attorney of...
I was in middle school.
Oh, well, you're the maybe you're the attorney of record because of the current action, but when I went back to the...
Or at least...
When I went back to the ZA 2320, it showed your name.
School.
You must have been a child prodigy then. Your name is attached to that zoning. I found that curious myself.
It's like you've been dealing with me that long.
It does, and it's getting, yes, it sure does. That's interesting. It must have been somebody else. It was with Emery's firm at that point. So,
What
but
aspirations.
in any case, I think this is just another one of these examples that these people who go out and seek these speculative zonings really create the bulk of our problems. That, you know, I mean, I put it to you a little more colorfully the other day in our meeting than I will say tonight, but this is really these types of issues were the impetus for us having to put in sunsetting in our zoning, because it's ridiculous to 20 years later be arguing over two different uses, neither of which is permitted. So I'm going to hand this over to the district commissioner and ask for what her pleasures.
I mean,
you know,
it was just hearing only.
If you want to discuss this any further, or we just wait till the 11th to decide. Okay.
Thank you,
What
Commissioner.
do we do with the item then if we're not voting on it?
It was just public hearing.
It was a public
It was
hearing.
postponed.
At the beginning of the meeting, we postponed decision, so, and we'll have another of those coming up as well. Okay, if there's no further comments, we'll move on to public hearing number 9.
Public hearing number 9 is AZ 190013. This is in Commission District Number 4. It's a public hearing for a county-initiated request regarding the amendment of condition number 2 placed on zoning application 3845.
Thank you. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Yeah, Madam Chair, just real quick for the record.
Yes, sir.
Was 9 postponed? My notes said it was.
We started to, and then we backed off. She said no, so
Okay, well, then-
the applicant did not
Never
want.
voted.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah. All right. We did have a motion. Do we have a second to open the public hearing? Please vote. And we are now open with a vote of 4-0. If there's anyone who is here to speak in favor of this application, please come forward at this time.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kendall King with Parent Homes, 3005 Breckenridge Boulevard, Suite 200, Duluth, Georgia, 30096. We are simply just seeking to amend ZA 3845, condition number 2. It currently reads, ownership and individual units will be fee simple, but the common areas and front and side yards will be managed through the homeowners association. and we seek to amend that to state ownership and individual units will be condominium, but the common areas and front and side yards will be managed through the homeowners association.
Okay.
So changing ownership from fee
Right, yeah,
simple.
we're only seeing the second half of that on the screen. So that's conditions, that's the condition two, as you read it, actually captured a little bit more than what is displayed here.
That's not all.
That's not the correct
You may
zoning?
read it again? No.
Would you like, do you have a hard copy of what they're proposing, or is this what you were anticipating?
No. Did that come from Ken? Kendall, did that come from Ken?
This
Yeah.
is just the
Yeah.
old zoning.
We're still in public hearing, so I just
Okay.
want
Well,
to
we
call
can
that out,
wait.
that what he read was not that. Do you have any other comments while we're still in public hearing?
No.
Okay. You stay close, we'll have some questions. Is there anyone else who's here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who's here to speak in opposition? Is there a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second, please vote. And our public hearing is now closed. You may want to come forward again. I think Commissioner Mills is going to have some questions, and maybe for Ken as well.
I just want to make sure we get the language right because we do not want this coming back again.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, Ken, did this language come?
I don't believe it came from me. Go ahead, and I'd like to
Where
hear it
did-
again.
Ownership and individual units will be condominium, but the common areas and front and side yards will be managed through the homeowners association. So I'm just simply changing fee simple to condominium.
Kendall, could you read it? Forgive me one more time, please.
You want him to bring it over and let you read it from there?
Because this, what's shown is not.
Yeah, I'd like to see it if you don't mind, Madam
This is
Chair. Is that
on-
okay?
Yes, please.
Because I'm wanting you to read it back.
It's a very different condition. It speaks to ownership.
Yeah, but was this the one we had that did not work, that we didn't want to
It
use?
talks to maintenance. It doesn't talk to ownership. That's a completely different construct.
They were the.
Madam Chair, if you'll give me just a second, I think I know what I want to do on this, but it'll take me just a second to do it.
That's fine, thank you.
We want to get it right.
Yeah.
Kendall, you want to come up here and tell us how you played a part in us having to go through the design standards? I had to. Seems like the cause of it.
Would it be easier to skip it and go? Okay.
Commissioner Mills, Madam Chair, forgive me for that, but I do think we have some language I'm comfortable with, and I've conferred with Mr. Brown. I think he's comfortable with as well. So I'll read it into the record, and then if that's going to serve as the basis of your motion, that'll be fine. It's a little different than what's on the screen and even what Mr. Kendall discussed. So the condition would say, this is very close to what Kendall mentioned, ownership in the individual lots will be condominium ownership, but the common areas and front and side yards will be managed through an homeowners association. Notwithstanding any other county code, condominium ownership shall mean that the individual unit's physical structure and interior space are owned by the unit owner. So that's what the condition will say. I wanted to confer with Mr. Brown because what I didn't want this to do is this condition to conflict with our UDC definition of condominium. So for purposes of that condition only, that's going to be the definition of what condominium means. I will tell you, board members, condominium means many different things to many different people, but we have to nail that down for this condition.
So just as a point of clarification, that doesn't in any way conflict with the overarching zoning for this.
No.
This amendment does not seek to change anything, just it clarifies.
This is ownership, who owns the ground
Right.
and the structure, yes.
Right, okay. Commissioner Mills?
Got a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask one thing? The only thing in that language that gives me a little concern is that it's an HO, you're saying the homeowners association will be created to take care of the open space, and it's really not a homeowners association, it's a condominium association, right? I mean, is there going to be a conflict? And that's sort of what kind of got us here. I just don't want any snag there in the language.
Listen, if we can tweak it right now and make it more clear, that's perfectly fine with me. So you're just trying to make the distinction between an HOA and a condominium owners association?
Well, yeah, because if it's condominiums, then it probably needs to be a condo association. I mean,
And/or.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So the language would be ownership in the individual lots will be condominium ownership, but the common areas in front and side yards will be managed through a condominium owners association or like entity. Notwithstanding any other county code, condominium ownership shall mean that the individual unit's physical structure and interior space are owned by the unit owner.
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second, please vote. And that motion passes with a vote of 4-0.
Did we cover it all?
Don't come back. All right, at this time, Russell's going to announce the public comments speakers for our second public comments section and the rules according to that.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. We are now at the second public comment portion of tonight's meeting, and I'm not sure if all of these speakers were in public hearing or not, and we'll see if they're still here. Our first speaker is Jeff Clement.
Thank you. I'm here to speak on the CP 190005, Health South Rehabilitation Hospital. You're going to hear from some other homeowners, I'm a Grove Park resident, live right adjacent to the property. We're very concerned about how that developer has treated us in these ongoing efforts to get their plan approved. It's been modified multiple times, so we can't keep up with the ever-shifting new plans that we get from them. The problem is really there's nothing in writing with regards to what are they addressing, why are they addressing it, and why does it keep shifting. So I would like to submit, and I don't have the fancy dancy PowerPoint. Can I give you a piece of paper?
If you, the rules are that you have to have a copy for each commissioner plus one for
I
the
do.
record. Perfect.
I do.
If you want to give them to the clerk, she'll make sure we get them.
So what you're getting is a copy of the UDC code, which spells out what's required in the public participation report. And in the public participation report, it is required that there be a composite summary of all concerns that would be addressed on the site plan or by the applicant requested zoning conditions, right? Also is required a composite summary of all concerns that will not be addressed and the reasons why these concerns will not be addressed. I would submit to you that in my review, uneducated review of the public participation report, those two pieces do not exist. And so we're chasing a ghost with regards to why are they keep changing the plan and what are our concerns and how are those concerns being addressed. And we have to dig into the microscopic details of each plan to find that our concerns have not been addressed, because we have some very detailed concerns about the buffer, about traffic, about parking, and we find that they're just non-communicative to us with regards to those concerns. And again, the plans just keep shifting. So I would recommend to you also that when you look at the incomplete public participation report, if it does not include those two composite pieces, we shouldn't even be having public hearings. So I would suggest to you that, and they've stated to us many times, they will only do what you tell them to do. I would ask that you tell them to produce these two pieces of the public participation report, or no more public hearings will be held, and this will not move forward. That will give us a solid foundation to discuss and address our concerns and their response to our concerns, and we would have something solid to talk about versus the he said, she said, shifting sands. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sharon Hausch.
Housley.
Good evening, Commissioners, and I'm talking on the Encompass proposal for a rehab hospital next to Grove Park. I have worked on the technical aspects of zoning against our neighborhood for a number of years, and I usually work very closely with the developer, and we usually have a very good relationship about, working on the actual conditions of zoning and getting the sketch plat to a point where we could both agree to it. And we have been working with the Encompass since last fall when the original submittal was made. And during the fall and winter, they had presented us with several different plans for sketches and some conditions, and we have always given them written comments back summarizing up our discussions with them. And at most of our meetings, there seems to be that we would be coming to an agreement on something, but then when we get the follow-through, which is usually a lengthy follow-through, they don't adhere to what we had discussed, and sometimes they file with the county, and they never tell us when they're going to do that. And so we have to go back and compare what they were proposing to us to see if they also proposed it with the county. In April 26th, we had a meeting with them, and we seemed to have some agreement, and we wrote down all those, and we gave them to them at their request, which we usually do anyway, and proposed conditions. We waited until May 28th to get their response. In that time, the Planning Commission had voted on it and had passed it on forward on May the 1st. During that time, we didn't hear anything on our concerns, and they sent it by email with no further explanation as to what was in there. And then within another week, they filed with the county, not only on the 28th of May, but also on the 7th, with totally different things that are quite significantly different than the sketch plat that we discussed with, and they did not come back to us to discuss why they were doing that or how that would help meet any of our concerns. Also, they have also proposed new amendments to the conditions that are currently standing on this piece of property, which they have not discussed why they did it, and those are taking out the descriptiveness that kind of protects our community for compatibility with a large-scale development next door to something that has nothing in it. Like number 17.
Our next speaker is Brad Carlton.
Okay.
Carlton Godfrey.
Brad did give me a few things to say as well, so I'll include that as well. My name is Carlton Godfrey. I live in Grove Park. This is for AZ 190006. I know that I've met many of you already about this. This is a situation where we've worked with these folks for about 15 years now. They continue to keep coming back. Unfortunately, the problem is they're flim-flam artists, bottom line. They say, look over here, don't look over here, look over here, don't look over here. They play a shell game with us. They're constantly doing that. And we're here again. Same thing, same old thing. We had this, what we thought, almost to the finish line. Miss Simonson was there. We were in a homeowner's house. We were pretty close. We had a couple of little things we needed to tweak, but we were pretty close. We had everything in the buffer that we were happy with. And then they, on the 7th of June, they sent a new site plan in, which was totally different. Here we are again. Look over here, don't look over here. So what I'm here to ask you is to do what they've asked you to do all along. In public hearings, they've said, we're only going to do what you tell them to do. I'm going to ask you to tell them to stop doing that. It's frustrating. We've been working on this forever. We're tired of it. And we are taxpayers in this community. We have a very different community than most other communities in the county. Once you drive in the neighborhood, you almost feel like you're in the country. We want to leave it like that. But we understand development has to come, but it has to come with a compromise. And they don't want to compromise because it costs them money. One other thing that Brad had asked me to mention here is that he is a real estate agent, been here a long time. We have 3 real estate agents in our community, and all of them say the same thing. If you put something there that is seen by commuting vehicles through the community, which with the plan that they have just submitted will do, our property values will plummet. And that's something we can't have. We have 149 homeowners. Those 149 homeowners pay about their homes are valued about $52 million. So think about the tax differences, because all of us are going to ask to have our taxes lowered when the value of the houses go down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scotty DePriest.
My name is Scotty DePriest. I live at 1725 Willow Park Way in Grove Park here in Cumming, Georgia. I have the longest common border with AZ 190006, at approximately 300 feet. I was present in 2006 when this piece of property changed from R1 to CBD, and with some other component pieces of property around in the urban village development. I was part of that negotiation. I was part of the group representing Grove Park, as well as myself, in the existing conditions and amendments that are attached to that piece of property. The purpose of that negotiation was simply to protect Grove Park, our community, and our property values. We have entered into a lot of negotiations with Encompass for over 6 months. I have personally hosted representatives in my home. Some of you have been in my home. And we have we're at the point where we're asking for your mercy from Grove Park, because we have exhausted our ability to negotiate. Every time we think we have made progress, as you've heard, it's stepped backwards. And we basically have been told that nothing's going to happen unless the commission tells us to do this. So we need the commission we need you to tell them what we need to do. I stood before the Planning Commission and said, hold this until we can get a better agreement in place, and it advanced. I'm sorry that the burden is on you, but I suppose that's your job, that the burden is on you. So we're asking for your support to protect our property. I'm not going to sit and read all of the issues that I could quote to you that have gone back and forth. But we're asking for your support to protect our property, protect our buffers, the definitions that were there when Encompass purchased that property. They were very much aware of those definitions and those buffers and those guidelines. They're trying to build an 80-bed hospital on a piece of land that doesn't fit, and they only have a 50-bed license. They're asking you to approve their future and condemn our future. Thank you very much.
If anyone else wishes to address the board during public comments, please come forward at this time. I'm seeing none, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our old business. Old business number 1 was postponed to July 11th. Old business number 2 was postponed to July 18th, which brings us to the aforementioned item, old business number 3.
CP 19-0005, Health South Rehabilitation Hospital, Forsyth LLC is the applicant. It's located in Commission District Number 5. They're requesting a conditional use permit to operate a hospital and related health services in a proposed 74,500 square foot building, allowing around-the-clock operation on 9.2 acres of property currently zoned CBD. They're also requesting a variance to reduce the number of loading spaces from 8 to 2. The property is located on Sanders Road. The public hearing was held on April 23rd. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the issuance of this conditional use permit with variance and conditions, as well as a recommendation that the screening of this development from adjacent residential properties shall be accomplished through the addition of a retaining wall, a 35-foot landscape strip, an 8-foot treated wood fence, and at least 3 rows of planted trees per AZ 19-0006, and mitigation of light spillage and visibility of this development from adjacent residential properties be addressed prior to final decision by the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you. So this was the subject of all of our speakers from the previous public comments, and this item was kicked out from a previous agenda. It's a little bit of there's an actual zoning condition amendment process that's coming up on July 11th, and as I had discussed with Tom Brown, our planning director, there was a lot that was captured as a result of all of those meetings that were held between Grove Park, and that was captured by the Planning Commission as a part of the conditional use permit. Tim Denny, my planning commissioner, was instrumental in helping to negotiate all of that. The one thing that is still seems to be at odds is the actual site plan that is traveling with the zoning condition amendment. So I have been resistant to withdrawing this conditional use permit until I'm satisfied that all of the conditions that are captured in this are then presented alongside the zoning condition amendment that will be coming to us next month. And so that's why I had stated up front that we were not going to be making a decision on this conditional use permit tonight, because effectively those conditions really needed to be captured with the zoning condition amendment, and that's unfortunately not a process that goes before our planning commission. So I have been in contact with the residents of Grove Park. I know what plans I've seen, and it has been kind of this moving tapestry of different maps and plans. And one of the things I want to make clear is that we are going to go back and look at what was approved by the Planning Commission versus what was the outcome from the meeting that we had all attended, and make sure that that's what's going to be coming forward with the zoning application or the zoning amendment condition. At that time, I will likely withdraw this conditional use permit, because it is in process, so it's still in play, but I want to keep it alive until we've been able to take from this what we need to move forward with the other application. As some of y'all may know, we've had a recent change in our code that would not necessarily require a conditional use permit for that type of use anymore. But because it was already in play, I've allowed it to stay alive so that we could make sure that we're going to work in the spirit of what was negotiated between the community and Encompass, and make sure that those things are included. So. Other commissioners, I don't know if you have any questions or comments to this at this point.
They already have 50 beds approved, correct? And they're
Right,
wanting 80?
and so the way that works, or at least the way that's been explained, they have to get the approval from the state for a certain size. And basically, their ability to execute those additional 30 beds that they are applying for in advance, so that they do not have to come back through this process to do a zoning condition amendment to expand the facility. They will not be able to build those additional beds right out of the gate. They will again have to have approval from the state to be able to expand that. I do understand as a business decision why they would come and ask for what their maximum capacity is, that they would want just to not have to go through the zoning process again. But the reality is that the state will control whether or not they can expand to that 80 regardless. So it will, we can approve it for 50 beds, for 80 beds, for whatever we want right now. Ultimately, the state holds the cards on whether they could even move from 50 to 80, and it would simply mean that they would have to come back through the process later. And that's something that we can certainly entertain.
So if, let's say the state does give them 80 or 70, whatever that number is.
Right.
That doesn't mean we automatically have to allow them to wipe out buffers to give them a variance, does it?
No.
Okay, so make sure.
No.
I went with Laura, our chair, to visit that other site, and was impressed that, and it had houses that abutted. I mean, and it was very quiet and tranquil.
They were a lot closer, I think, than what we're looking at right now, but.
But I just wondered if any of the neighbors had had a chance to go and view it. Y'all don't have to come up here.
I don't think they have, but.
We don't need to, because it's a different lay of land. Art has explained that land's flat.
The topo's different.
This land's topography is totally different. It's
Well, yeah, it's not really a public hearing, so unfortunately, we can't get into the back and forth too much. But I would encourage you to reach out to us again, and to via email or call us on the phone, and you can explain those things. It's just not procedurally, I can't allow that right now. Do any other commissioners have any questions or concerns before we move along?
I will tell you right now, until they make these people from Grove Park happy and meet what they need to live there and their quality of life they know today, I have no interest in voting for their sketch plan.
Well, that's why everything's going to come forward at the same time, with all of the conditions captured, the site plan that reflects what was presented to the planning commission that reflects what was agreed upon. That all needs to make sure that that's captured with next, and that's why I've not allowed this process to die.
And I just hope that they understand that they have a
Yeah.
challenging road ahead of them
Oh,
unless they cooperate.
I think they do, so. All right, in that case, we'll go ahead and we'll move on to our new business. Number 1, we have a conditional use permit for District 2.
Madam Chair, with respect, and again, forgive me
Yes,
if
sir.
this was covered, but with respect to that one, did we postpone it to a date certain? Do you want to keep it?
I had already postponed the decision.
You had it
to come
agenda-
back as old business on 7/11.
Thank you, forgive me, yes.
Thank you. Conditional use permit, number 1.
New business item 1A, CP 190004, RK and Company Luxury Lending LLC, located in Commission District Number 2. It's a request for the issuance of a conditional use permit to operate a 1,400 square foot pawn shop in an existing building on 1.9455 acres of property currently zoned CBD. The property is located at 3651 Peachtree Parkway, Suite A. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the conditional use permit with conditions. The public hearing was held on May 21st. The proposed use is in conformity with the comprehensive plan. Staff was supportive, and that is the only version of the conditions that we have to show. They're on the screen now.
Thank you. And as you can note, the conditions on this are framed around the business model they presently have, so as to basically exclude traditional types of pawn. I did speak to Commissioner Brown on this one as well. I'd like to give an opportunity for anybody else on the board who has a comment or a question on it. I actually did visit the site down in Johns Creek. It was, you would not walk into this business and say this is a pawn shop. It clearly was an estate jewelry, high-end jeweler, and I think they've tried to capture the essence of that in all of the conditions that are there, and to basically preempt the ability for it to convert to a different type of use later on. If there's no questions, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve conditional use permit 190004 to operate a pawn shop with the conditions as displayed on the screen.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that motion carries 4-0. Right.
Madam Chair, just a point of order, and forgive me for this. On
Yes,
old
sir.
business 3, I conferred with the clerk, and we may be wrong, I may be wrong, but would you, just out of belt and suspenders, would you please make a motion on 3 where you want that to land? If you'll just.
Yeah, I'd like that to land on old business on the July 11th agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Thank you so much for
Oh,
that.
we have
Yeah,
to clear
You're
boards.
welcome. Yeah, I thought I did that as agenda review.
There we go, now you got to
You may
I
have,
guess I made it in an
and,
announcement form, but,
You got to call the vote again, you had to clear the board.
oh,
yes,
please vote.
thank you,
Once
Madam
again,
Chair.
4-0.
I've got a point of order, or just a question. When I did the one where we didn't take, where we just did the public hearing,
Yes, ma'am.
we didn't take any action at all, but when will that come back up?
Well, maybe I made the same mistake.
It
I
could
thought,
be.
did we not set that during
We
the
set that
adoption
during
of?
agenda.
No, we didn't take any action, did we?
No, you made an announcement similar to what I did.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, then we need
I don't
to.
think
Or a
so.
vote, that's a
There you
big
go.
difference.
All right, well, in for a penny,
I
in
didn't
for a
think we
pound. We
did.
need to go ahead and set that one where it comes to come back up then.
And I don't think he said in his letter that he sent over, didn't ask me, and he wants it to run, I think, you know, he's doing that absurd thing where he's got the two things coming at the same time.
The two tracks. So this was public hearing 8,
Yes, it
Commissioner
was.
Mills.
No,
Yeah, it was.
okay, yeah, public hearing 8. Do we know what track that other one's on? I mean, where
Yes.
we've got two
July 18th.
okay, so I make a motion that we make the decision on that July 18th.
Second. There's a second, first, or there's a motion, a second,
Hold on, one
please.
question,
Yeah.
one question.
Thank
All right.
you. Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Thank you, Madam Chair, for that.
All right, please vote. And that carries 4-0. All righty,
I've had that on my mind since
back,
then.
back in business. New business 1B.
CP 190011, JM Consulting Services of Georgia LLC, located in Commission District Number 2, requesting a conditional use permit to operate a 1,400 square foot smoke and vapor cigarette shop in an existing building on 2.62 acres of property currently zoned CBD. The property is located at 4090 Johns Creek Parkway. The Planning Commission recommends denial of the issuance of this conditional use permit. The public hearing was held on May 21st, 2019. The proposed use is in conformity with the comprehensive plan. Staff is supportive.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any, I did speak with Commissioner Brown about this item as well. I don't know if any of you have any questions that perhaps I could answer, or any concerns that you may have, or questions, or that anybody can clarify for you.
Well, I know in the past, and I'm not saying about this one particularly, but in the past, we've had some problems with the vape shops and what they're offering. Some of the, not necessarily paraphernalia, but some of the ingredients that go into the vaping mechanism.
Is this for a vape shop?
It is for a vape shop, yes.
I'm curious to see what the motion's going to be.
Okay. Do you have any? I'm not even gonna let you get started. All right. Okay, so I did confer with Commissioner Brown earlier today, and as was his desire, I'd like to make a motion that in line with the Planning Commission's recommendation of denial, that we also make a motion for denial.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that motion carries 4-0. Thank you. All right, that brings us to 1C.
Can we postpone that?
Too late.
I'm just kidding.
CP 190008, Racetrack Petroleum, Inc., in Commission District Number 3, requesting the issuance of a conditional use permit to build a 5,411 square foot convenience store with gas pumps, allowing around-the-clock operation on 1.832 acres of property currently zoned CBD. The applicant's also requesting a variance to increase parking spaces from 22 to 32. The property is located at 6055 Bethelview Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the issuance of the conditional use permit with variance and conditions. We do have a red line version of the conditions that we will display. The public hearing was held on May 21st. The proposed use is in conformity with the comprehensive plan. Staff is supportive.
Thank you. Commissioner Levent, this is in your district.
I'm going to ask their counselor to come up. Mr. Light.
Evening.
Can we show the red line version, please? The 22 spaces to the 32 spaces, I know we discussed that and you showed it on a plat, and they want to put them over, I guess it's toward, what additionally would be a different development at some point on the same, I guess, overall piece of land. Or does it protrude out toward a roadway?
No, it's on the side that has a property that Ingalls requested be vacant, wouldn't let racetrack expand out to there, that's in between the racetrack site and the Highway 9.
And how many spaces are in that one location?
8.
8. So that's 8 of the 10 you're looking for?
Okay. Correct. And there is an administrative variance for parking spaces that allows the director to determine 15% either way. So that would be we could get the spaces except for those on that side.
That's fine.
To the administrator. Does that if that makes sense?
Staff, did you read the one that they had in there? Go back up toward the top. I want to make sure they're okay with this.
I can explain.
And by the way, 12 is something I've asked them to do because we didn't know what verbiage we wanted to put on the sign yet, so we'll still figure that out.
Welcome to Leventville.
Okay, stop right there. Land. Levent land, not Ville. Just kidding. Sewer access must be provided upstream. You okay with that?
That's
Okay.
fine.
Just want to make sure, because these are red lines.
And Mr. Barry Lucas responded to the email when I sent this to y'all confirming that was not needed for this property.
Okay, very good. And then we scroll, I guess, all the way to the bottom, if you will, please. Thank you. Any questions? Anybody else?
I don't, I think I was satisfied after I met with them and took a look, and the additional parking request was to accommodate pulling the employee parking away from the building to allow the more use for customers up against the building.
This is fine, it's fine. I think it all works fine. It seems like everybody's, I guess, aligned with these conditions as well, so I'm okay with
Is
them.
there a site plan or anything that you want to
You
roll
need to show
into
'em?
this as
There's
well?
there's three exhibits that I
Okay.
sent with the
Let's see 'em.
conditions that, the conditions referenced such, and I've sent them to the staff, so.
So we got the canopy without the stripe.
Correct. And Exhibit B is where the added amenity area is shown, as well as the landscape proposal.
Where's the sign go? I'm not seeing it actually.
No, the community sign is pictured in Exhibit C, but it would be right there where they should just move the mouse.
Right there?
Correct.
All right, we're gonna have to remember that, because I'm very good.
Todd Town.
No, at least it'll be a fun place to play.
That's all a matter of opinion.
I don't know about that. Well, Ms. Mills, it'll be exhausting. We'll put you through some kind of rigorous sport. Are we good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Make a motion for approval of the CP 190008 as displayed with the red line version and the exhibit shown and the little hand showing where the sign will go.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, please vote. And that carries 4-0, and they'll put like a big plastic hand out there.
I just wish they had enough land to make a
Like a
motorcycle track
floaty, like one of those inflatable. Right.
on the other one. Thank you.
All right, new business 1D, please.
CP 190010, Charles and Alicia McPhee, Commission District Number 5. The request is for a conditional use permit to build 731 square foot detached accessory apartment on 0.816 acres of property currently zoned R2R. The property is located on Chimney Point Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the conditional use permit with a condition. That condition is shown on your screen, and it's the only version of the conditions we have to display tonight. The public hearing was held on May 21st. The proposed use is in conformity with the comprehensive plan. Staff is supportive.
Thank you. Ethan, can you come up for just 1 second?
Yes, ma'am.
When we had discussed this, of course, one of the things that we discussed was this versus the definition of it as the accessory dwelling versus the guest house.
Guest house, correct.
And the need to remove the existing kitchen from the building if it were to become a guest house, but the guest house would then be allowed to be rented as or to apply for a short-term rental, but this, what is the underlying zoning on that property? It's not
The underlying zoning is R2R.
It's an R2R, so it's not applicable anyway.
Correct.
Right.
Just
Okay.
the definition of guest house.
Yeah, I know that we wanted to have that they wanted to contain that so that that's actually going to function as an accessory dwelling for the family to use.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification. I want to make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit 190010 to build a detached accessory apartment with the condition as displayed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, please vote. And the funny thing is that the building that exists right now is actually the accessory apartment. They're gonna build a house. So, yeah. Okey doke. Moving along, we have new business number 2 was, or excuse me, we have E. Yep.
1E.
Pages are sticking together.
Zoning application 3939, RWB Development LLC, located in Commission District Number 5. It's a request to rezone 7.47 acres from R3 to Res 2 for 6 residential lots
Oh my God, I
with a
need to make him
density
come
of
up and talk.
0.81 units per acre. The property is located northeast of Pilgrim Road, south of its intersection with Tamiami Trail. The Planning Commission recommends approval of this rezoning from R3 to Res 2 with conditions. The version of the conditions on the screen are the only version that we have to display tonight. The public hearing was held on May 21st. The Proposed use is in conformity with the comprehensive plan. Staff is supportive.
Thank you. I see the applicant's here in the building. This is what it takes to get him back in here. He never calls, he never writes anymore. Thanks. The language that speaks to the consistent with the site plan on file, do you have that to display? The site plan for this? How the lot's laid out?
The only thing I have the
I know I'd seen it, I just saw it.
recommendations from the Planning Commission.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And is that the layout of you guys have for the lots right now? Sure, please come forward and state your name. This is fun. Look, he's all dressed up today, too. Tucked in,
Got them shades on.
haircut, shaved.
Shaved, no coat and tie on.
Does that reflect the current plan for that site?
My name is Pete Amos. I'm a partner of RWB. My address is 1605 Stony Meadow Lane. And this is a simple rezoning from old Res 3 to Res 2. And we did it simply because we haven't had any soil tests done yet, and we can move it around, but we only want 6 lots on 7 acres. So the site plan can change. That's why we want to do this.
Okay.
So it's just really a minor plat to do it with. So it's less than 0.8 units per acre. Should meet everything out there. It was old zoning that shouldn't have probably ever been done out that way because there's never going to be sewer.
Right.
And we changed it.
So as it stands right now, you have 2 driveways coming directly off of Pilgrim Mill.
That would
And the
be
rest-
subject to change to engineering department.
Okay.
They have to approve all driveways.
Right.
And so we'll go what they say.
Okey doke. All right, thank you.
You now have to leave
I had to make
blood.
it come up.
Do what?
You now have to leave blood.
Oh.
That's another requirement.
Requirement? It's good to see you. I do miss y'all.
We miss you too.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? I'm glad to see another R3 bite the dust in my district. All right, with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion that we approve zoning application 3939 to rezone multifamily residential R3 to single-family residential Res 2 on 7.47 acres with the conditions as displayed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, please vote. And that motion carries with a vote of 4-0. Thanks. All right, new business number 2 has been postponed to July the 23rd, which takes us to new business number 3.
Commissioners, this item is asking for your authorization to move forward with the Chamber and the Development Authority presenting an offer letter to Sports Warehouse for incentives. And the incentives that you would be authorizing to move forward with would be, number 1, it would be expediting of plan review and permitting, the Fast Pass that you're familiar with, I believe. The second item would be a amendment to an existing tax abatement agreement. Those are the 2 items. What the project has been represented to us by the Chamber is presenting are 200 new jobs by the end of 2022, a brand new 80,000 square foot facility. The next code is 4541, which is electronic shopping and mail order houses, falls within our schedule of criteria. Average wage, $29,536. Investment in real and personal property, $9,120,162. Net present value of revenues, $339,535.
And just as a reminder, there was no abatement of the school tax. It was of our own taxes.
That's correct.
And just of the M&O or of the entire property tax? Was it just of the M&O portion, or was it also of the bond issues?
It was only the M&O portion.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
The only question that I have is just to clarify what that change will be, what that amendment is going to be, that you're requesting for the tax abatement.
What the change is going to be?
Yes,
Sure.
that you're requesting for the tax abatement.
Sure. So the original agreement was 12 years 12-year term. The first 3 years was 0 that they pay, ramps up 10, 20 after that, up to 12 years. And that was up to $20 million of investment. This new, if you were to move forward, the offer that would be presented would be to change that from 20 to 24 million and to restart the clock, which essentially what it does is it changes a 12-year deal into a 14-year deal, which means instead of paying 0 for the first 3 years, they're paying zero for the first 5 years because you're restarting the clock. The clock originally started in 2018.
And did they pay their business license?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Just to reassure people, there are clawbacks in that if those numbers, the 200 new jobs for 2022, there is a clawback provision if that is not attained.
So I want to be clear in answering that question because I know clawbacks are something we've discussed before. So the portion that the Board of Commissioners has direct control over is really just the offering of the Fast Pass.
Right.
There's really no clawback for a Fast Pass because it's kind of a foregone
You've done
thing,
it.
right? By the
Right.
time they've gotten their Fast Pass, they're done, right? Theoretically. So you can't really claw that back. The other portion of it, the bond, what this board could do is they could ask, or I would look to Ken to see if it could be a condition or worked into this offer letter. You could condition or require in the offer letter, because you have the ability, I believe, to negotiate bond documents, you could ask for a performance and accountability clause to be included in the MOA or MOU that the Development Authority has with Sports Warehouse. And you could go even further as to say what percentage you would require before a clawback was triggered. But barring that, whatever the DA decides to put in that agreement, in that MOA, will be what they decide to put in the MOA. So we don't have control over clawbacks. But like I said, you could
We
condition
can direct them.
this offer. Yeah, you could say, because you have the ability in our economic development ordinance to
Right.
negotiate bond documents, you could say that we require a performance and accountability agreement, and you could go further, like I said, to dictate at what point you want to claw back. So you could decide, let's say, if they don't hit 80%, then you claw back. You
Right.
could decide if you don't hit 100%, you could claw back. That would be at your discretion. I believe you could condition.
And just for purposes, though, of understanding what we're clawing back exactly, it wouldn't be the transactional document itself. It's going to be the tax relief on the
Right.
valuation of the property.
Right.
That's what we could claw back. And so, yes, I agree with that. So that if it don't mean certain targets, we could certainly end the tax abatement, which is basically the way the assessor values the leasehold. We could certainly do that. But, the bonds are going to be what the bonds are going to be. We can't
Right.
claw anything related to that back. But yes, on the basically the ad valorem relief, we could accelerate an end to that.
And another thing you could do to not have to wait until the end to do that is you could work into, and I'm kind of thinking off the cuff here, but what you could possibly do is put temporal, certain times at which that's evaluated, make that a requirement. So instead of waiting until 2031 to look back and see what they've done, you could make it so you check, the DA would check every 2 years or a year or 3 years or whatever you would like. My understanding is you can negotiate that and include that in the.
Let me, if I may, and I agree with everything that Vivian is saying. The reason this is coming in front of you is we kind of structured this economic development ordinance such that Vivian, the county manager, and the CFO can kind of work together to prepare these. But at the end of the day, you have to approve.
Right.
You have to approve the contract before it sort of goes live, if you will. This sounds interesting to me, and clearly I think, Madam Chair, you mentioned the clawback. This might be a situation where you want to ratify the letter and then have the county manager working with the economic development director to add any
Actual
sort of
agreement.
clawback triggers that they are comfortable with. Because I don't know that we're going to be able to spitball this tonight and get it the sweet spot. But if you otherwise want to authorize the letter, I think you have every right to give them the direction to work that into the letter to the Development Authority and the sports.
But I
warehouse.
like the direction they're heading on it.
I don't disagree.
And I like that, especially don't wait till the end to find out that these jobs they've promised never materialized.
Okay.
So Ken, are you saying that if they authorize the offer letter this evening for us to move forward, then after that, we can ask the DA to put those things in there?
That's exactly what I'm doing.
right.
The whole purpose of this ratification was just to give
Get the
some
ball rolling.
transparency to this, but I think they have the flexibility to do that.
All right, good discussion. Any more questions or comments from the board? Would anyone like to offer a motion? If not, I'll make a motion then that I would move that we authorize the Sports Warehouse Economic Development Incentive offer by the Cumming Forsyth County Chamber of Commerce.
Second.
Be approved. Thank you. We have a motion.
Well, just a
And
point of order.
and the issuance of the letter.
And did you want to add any flexibility for the county manager to work in there any clawback
Absolutely.
conditions?
Yeah. With that, let's start over.
Yeah.
Make a motion that we authorize the offer letter, that we direct
I
the county.
withdraw the second.
Yep, and we direct the county manager, Vivian, and staff to work with the Development Authority to produce a document that captures the clawback constraint, the clawback conditions. Did I got it all?
That's it.
You don't have
Alrighty.
to say anything about a timetable with it or anything.
No, because I think that's just going to give them the
It'll
latitude
be-
to take this conversation and distill it into something
Yeah,
that
I mean,
they
because they're
can
going to come
do.
back to us with the MOU anyway, so it just, they'll include that as part of it.
And
So
I
we
gave
have
her a second.
We have a motion, a second, all in favor, please, or everybody please vote. Here we go. And that motion carries with a vote of 4-0. All right. We've already dealt with our administrative hearing for this evening. So I got to ask the question, Counselor, is there a need for an executive session this evening?
And Madam Chair, my understanding is there is a need for an executive session, and there will be
Okay.
no action taken afterwards, but there will be an executive.
Thank you. Is there a motion to recess the regular meeting and public hearings and enter to an executive session for a discussion of litigation, land acquisition, and/or personnel?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And we are in recess at 8:15 p.m. Is there a motion to reconvene the regular meeting and public hearings? So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. That motion passes with a vote of 4-0. Is there a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and public hearings? So moved.
Good.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. We are both reconvened and adjourned at 9:15 p.m.
Ron, tell me.
This is TV Forsyth, your county connection.